Charles Darwin's theory of evolution by natural selection explains how humans evolved from earlier primates over millions of years. This theory does not claim that humans came from modern apes like chimpanzees or gorillas. Instead, it says that humans and other primates share a common ancestor. Over time, different groups changed in different ways based on their environment and how well they survived and reproduced. Natural selection is the process behind these changes. In every species, individuals vary. Some are faster, stronger, or more resistant to disease. These traits can help them survive and have more offspring. If these helpful traits can be passed on, they become more common in the next generation. Over many generations, these small changes add up and can lead to new species. To understand this better, imagine a group of early primates living in a forest. Some have slightly better balance, which helps them climb trees to escape predators and reach fruit. Those who climb better live longer and have more babies. Their children also climb well. After thousands of generations, this group may develop long arms and curved fingers suited for tree life. Another group, living on open ground, may benefit from walking upright. Over time, this second group starts to walk on two legs and uses their hands for other tasks, like gathering food or using tools. These changes can lead to the development of new species, including early humans. Evidence for this process comes from many sources. Fossils show us bones of ancient primates and early humans, revealing changes over time. For example, Australopithecus afarensis, a species that lived about 3 to 4 million years ago, walked upright but had a small brain. Later species, like Homo habilis, had larger brains and used tools. These fossils help trace the slow path from early primates to modern humans. Comparing DNA also supports Darwin's theory. Humans share about 98.8% of their DNA with chimpanzees. This high similarity suggests that we had a common ancestor with them around 6 to 7 million years ago. Differences in DNA show where and how we changed. Genes involved in brain size, speech, and upright walking show more changes than others. This tells us these traits were important during our evolution. The shape of our bodies also provides clues. Modern humans walk upright with long legs and a straight spine. Our pelvis is short and broad, helping us balance. These features differ from other primates, whose bodies are built for climbing. Our hands have fine motor control, which helps us make and use tools. These changes did not happen all at once. They developed step by step over many generations. One major change was brain size. Early humans had brains about 1/3 the size of ours. Over time, the brain grew, especially in areas linked to planning, memory, and language. A larger brain uses more energy, so this change must have provided strong benefits. People with larger brains may have been better at solving problems or working in groups, which helped them survive and raise children. Tool use also shaped human evolution. Some of the earliest stone tools are about 2.5 million years old. These tools helped early humans cut meat, crack bones, and process plants. Better tools made it easier to get food. As tool use spread, those with better hands and sharper thinking had an advantage. Tool-making skills passed from one generation to the next, encouraging learning and cooperation. Language likely played a key role as well. Speaking helps people share information, plan, and teach. Though we can't know when language began, changes in the throat, mouth, and brain suggest it may have started at least 100,000 years ago. People with clearer speech likely worked better in groups, giving them a better chance to survive and raise children. Over time, this may have led to more complex thinking and culture. Living in groups had its own effects. Early humans who worked together were more likely to find food, avoid danger, and care for young. This led to stronger social bonds and a need to understand others. As a result, the brain kept evolving to manage relationships, emotions, and social rules. These skills still shape how we live today. The spread of humans across the world also shows how natural selection works. As people moved into new areas, they faced different climates and challenges. In colder places, people with lighter skin absorbed more sunlight to make vitamin D. In sunny regions, darker skin protected against UV damage. Over time, these traits became common in different groups. These changes did not make some people better than others. They simply reflect how each group adapted to their environment. Evolution is not about progress or perfection. It is about change and survival. Traits that help in one setting might not help in another. For example, a thick coat of fur helps in the Arctic, but not in a hot desert. Evolution does not plan ahead. It works with what is already there, making small changes that improve survival and reproduction. The theory of evolution by natural selection does not explain everything about human life, but it offers a strong base. It explains why we share so much with other primates and why we differ. It shows how small changes, passed on over time, can shape new forms of life. By looking at fossils, DNA, and our own bodies, we can see the long journey that led to the modern human. This journey is still going. Evolution has not stopped. It continues every time a child is born with new traits that may help them in a changing world. The Out of Africa theory says that modern humans first appeared in Africa and then spread to other parts of the world. This theory is based on strong evidence from fossils, genetics, and archaeology. It explains how our species, Homo sapiens, began in one place and then moved across the globe over tens of thousands of years. Scientists believe modern humans appeared in Africa around 200,000 to 300,000 years ago. These early humans looked much like us. They had small faces, round skulls, and long legs. They also used tools and lived in groups. Fossils found in eastern and southern Africa show that these humans lived in various environments, from forests to grasslands. Some groups hunted large animals, while others gathered plants and fished in rivers. At first, modern humans stayed in Africa, but over time, small groups began to leave. The reasons are not clear. They may have followed animals, searched for water, or moved to escape conflict. Around 70,000 years ago, one group left eastern Africa and crossed into the Arabian Peninsula. This started the long journey of humans into Asia, Europe, and beyond. This first group was likely small, perhaps only a few hundred people. They walked or used simple boats to travel along coastlines and through river valleys. These routes gave them access to food and shelter. As they moved, they adapted to new climates and landscapes. Some groups went north into Europe, while others headed east into Asia and eventually reached Australia and the Pacific Islands. Fossils and tools support this path. Sites in Israel show modern humans lived there about 100,000 years ago, though those people may not have survived long. More successful groups moved out around 60,000 to 70,000 years ago. 40,000 years ago, humans had reached Europe and northern Asia. They lived near rivers, in caves, or in open camps. They hunted large animals like mammoths and deer. They also made art, such as cave paintings and carvings. Genetics adds more support. DNA from people around the world shows that all modern humans come from a single population that lived in Africa. Scientists studied a part of DNA passed from mothers to children, called mitochondrial DNA. This shows that everyone alive today has a common female ancestor who lived in Africa about 150,000 to 200,000 years ago. She was not the only woman alive at the time, but her line is the one that survived through generations. Another kind of DNA comes from the Y chromosome, passed from fathers to sons. It also points to African origins. The oldest Y chromosomes are found in African men. These results match the fossil record and support the idea that humans spread from Africa rather than appearing in many places at once. As humans moved, they met other groups. In Europe and parts of Asia, they encountered Neanderthals. In Asia, they also met a group called the Denisovans. These were other kinds of humans, not exactly like us, but close relatives. They had lived outside Africa for hundreds of thousands of years. When modern humans met them, they sometimes had children together. This is shown in DNA. Today, people from outside Africa carry small amounts of Neanderthal and Denisovan DNA. This means some mixing happened, though it was limited. These other human groups later died out. Modern humans became the only type of humans still living. The reasons are not fully known. It could be due to better tools, faster learning, or greater cooperation in groups. As humans settled in new lands, they changed over time. These changes helped them survive in different environments. In colder places, people developed lighter skin to make vitamin D from sunlight. In hot places, darker skin protected against sun damage. Other changes affected height, body shape, or even resistance to disease. All of these came from small genetic changes passed down over generations. Let's take a closer look at one example. Imagine a group of people leaving Africa and moving into Central Asia. They face cold winters and new animals to hunt. At first, survival is hard, but those who can build shelters, store food, and work in groups have better chances. Over time, their children inherit these skills or traits. After thousands of years, the group may look and live quite differently from their African ancestors, but deep down, they still carry the same roots. Australia gives another example. People reached this continent by at least 50,000 years ago. They likely crossed water from Southeast Asia using simple boats. Once in Australia, they adapted to deserts, forests, and coasts. They developed unique tools, beliefs, and ways of life. Yet their DNA still links them to early humans who left Africa. The Americas were the last major lands to be settled. People reached them around 15,000 to 20,000 years ago, likely by walking across a land bridge that once connected Siberia to Alaska. They moved quickly, reaching the southern tip of South America in just a few thousand years. Along the way, they hunted large animals like mammoths and bison. As in other places, they formed their own cultures and adapted to the land. This global journey did not happen overnight. It took thousands of years and many generations. People moved slowly, built families, shared knowledge, and passed down traditions. They adjusted to each new place, creating the rich variety of human cultures we see today. Still, the Out of Africa theory shows we all come from the same source. It links people from every part of the world to a small group that once lived in Africa. The details may vary, but the path traces back to the same beginning. The Multiregional Hypothesis says that modern humans, or Homo sapiens, did not come from one single place like Africa. Instead, this idea suggests that humans developed in several parts of the world at the same time. According to this view, earlier humans like Homo erectus left Africa more than 1 million years ago and spread to Asia, Europe, and other regions. Over time, these groups changed gradually into modern humans, but they stayed connected through small amounts of mixing between populations. This mixing helped keep humans as one species. This theory depends on the idea of gene flow. Gene flow means that groups of people met and had children together, even if they lived far apart most of the time. This movement of genes allowed helpful traits to spread, keeping the species from splitting into separate kinds. The changes that made people look or act differently in different areas still happened, but they happened within a shared human population. So, according to this view, people in China, Africa, and Europe all slowly developed into modern humans at the same time, not in one place first and then spread. Supporters of the multi-regional hypothesis often point to fossils. they say some human traits in certain regions show signs of local development over a long time. For example, they note that skulls found in ancient Chinese fossils have some features that also appear in modern East Asian populations. In the same way, some traits seen in early European fossils might link to traits seen in today's European people. These researchers believe that these links suggest a continuous line of development in each region rather than a total replacement by a new population coming from elsewhere. To explain this further, imagine a population of Homo erectus living in what is now Southeast Asia 1.5 million years ago. Over thousands of generations, they slowly changed. Their brains grew. Their tools became better. Their bodies adapted to their surroundings. If they sometimes mixed with nearby groups from Central Asia or South Asia, they shared traits and genes, but they still kept some regional traits that showed their long history in that area. According to the Multiregional Hypothesis, this is how modern humans in Asia could have local roots that go back far beyond the last 100,000 years. Another example comes from Europe. Homo heidelbergensis and Neanderthals lived in Europe for hundreds of thousands of years. Multi-regionalists say that modern Europeans may carry forward some of these traits through continuous evolution and local change. This does not mean that Neanderthals became modern humans, but that there was enough contact and mixing for genes to pass from one group to another, shaping the modern human form in Europe. Gene flow plays a major role in keeping these groups from becoming too different. Without some contact, isolated groups could evolve into separate species. But if people met from time to time, even just a little, they could still pass on genes, ideas, and tools. This limited contact would be enough to spread important traits, like larger brains or better tools, without needing one group to replace another completely. The multi-regional hypothesis does not deny evolution. It still sees humans as the result of long-term change. It just suggests that this change happened in more than one place at once. Evolution took a similar path in each region because people shared genes and faced similar challenges. The people who survived were those best suited to their environment, and the traits that helped them were passed down. Critics of this view argue that it is hard to explain the high genetic similarity among all modern humans. DNA studies show that people from all parts of the world are very closely related. In fact, the differences between people in different regions are small, suggesting a recent shared origin. But supporters of the multi-regional hypothesis say that limited gene flow over time could still explain this closeness. If people kept moving and mixing, they could stay genetically similar, even if they had been separated for long periods. A real-world example helps make sense of this. Think about modern languages. Spanish, French, and Italian all came from Latin. Over time, they changed in different places, but people also traveled, traded, and intermarried, which kept the languages from becoming totally unrelated. In the same way, human groups could change in local ways, but still remain one species because of contact and shared traits. In this view, Neanderthals and other early humans outside Africa were not simply replaced. Instead, they were part of the human story. They may have contributed to the modern human gene pool, not just through a few short periods of mixing, but as part of a long and connected process. This would mean that modern humans carry traits and genes that go back through many different lines and locations, not just one group in Africa. There is some genetic evidence that supports limited mixing. For example, modern humans outside Africa carry small amounts of Neanderthal DNA. Some also carry genes from Denisovans, another group of early humans from Asia. This supports the idea that groups met and shared genes. Multi-regionalists argue that such mixing might have been more common and played a larger role than what most researchers now accept. In places like Indonesia and China, some fossils seem to show a mix of modern and earlier traits. These finds raise questions about how clean the break was between earlier humans and modern ones. While many scientists explain this with the out of Africa model, followed by limited mixing, multi-regionalists suggest these fossils show a deeper and more continuous development in those areas. the multi-regional hypothesis remains a minority view among scientists today. Most favor the out-of-Africa theory because it fits well with most of the fossil and genetic evidence. But the multi-regional model still adds value by pointing to the role of gene flow and local development. It reminds us that evolution is not always simple or linear. Human history may include both large movements and slow, local changes happening at the same time. Understanding both views helps build a more complete picture. Whether humans came from one place or many, the process was long, complex, and shaped by many factors: climate, tools, movement, and contact with others. The multi-regional hypothesis offers one way to think about that process by focusing on how human groups changed while staying connected across time and space. Mirror neuron theory suggests that humans have special brain cells called mirror neurons. These neurons fire both when a person performs an action and when they see someone else perform the same action. This means the brain reacts in a similar way whether you do something yourself or watch another person do it. This discovery has helped explain how people understand others, learn by watching, and connect emotionally. Scientists first found mirror neurons in monkeys in the 1990s. Researchers were studying the brain activity of a monkey reaching for food. Then they noticed something strange. When a scientist in the room picked up the food, the same neurons in the monkey's brain fired as if the monkey had moved. The monkey had not moved at all. It had only watched. This meant that the monkey's brain treated the scientist's action as if it were its own. Later, researchers looked for similar brain activity in humans. They used brain imaging tools like fMRI to track what happened when people watched others move. They found that some areas of the brain lit up both when people acted and when they watched others act. This showed that humans likely have a mirror neuron system, just like monkeys. This system seems to play a key role in how we learn from others and how we understand them. One clear use of mirror neurons is imitation. Young children learn many skills by watching adults. They see someone wave, smile, or pick up a spoon. Then they try to do the same thing. Their mirror neurons fire while watching and again when they try the action. This helps link seeing and doing. This is faster than learning only by trial and error. It also builds a connection between people. A child who sees a smile may smile back, not just a copy, but because the action feels familiar in the brain. Mirror neurons also help with empathy. When you see someone get hurt, you may flinch or feel pain yourself. You did not get hurt, but your brain responds as if you did. This reaction helps you understand what the other person feels. It makes you more likely to care or want to help. Mirror neurons may help us feel these things because they let us mirror the experience of others inside our own minds. Take a simple example. You watch a friend stub their toe. You may wince even if nothing touched you. Your brain picks up the cues, the grimace, the sound, the body movement, and activates the same areas that would fire if you were in pain. This gives you a rough version of the same experience. You don't feel the full pain, but you feel enough to understand. That's how empathy can begin. Another example is in conversation. When someone talks, their tone and face help you guess what they mean or how they feel. If they raise their eyebrows and widen their eyes, you may mirror that look. Your brain uses mirror neurons to simulate what they are doing and match it. This helps you respond in a way that fits the moment. You don't need to think about every detail. Your brain fills in the feeling by mapping their actions onto your own system. Mirror neurons may also explain why people enjoy watching sports or dancing. Even if you sit still, your brain simulates the movements you see. If someone swings a tennis racket, your brain activates the same areas involved in swinging, even if you've never played tennis. This gives you a sense of motion, effort, and timing, just from watching. That's why you might clench your fist when someone scores or sway with the rhythm of a dancer. These neurons might also help explain why people yawn when others yawn. Seeing someone yawn activates the same parts of your brain that control yawning. This creates a chain reaction. The same idea may apply to laughing, crying, or even speaking. One person shows an emotion, and others pick it up through shared brain activity. This spreads feelings and creates social bonds. In teaching and learning, mirror neurons play a quiet but strong role. A student who watches a teacher solve a math problem is not just hearing steps. Their brain maps the actions and thinking patterns, creating a model for how to do the same task. The same happens in music, drawing, sports, or even everyday skills like cooking. Watching others triggers a process that helps people try new actions and understand how they work. Mirror neurons may also help explain how people develop language. When babies hear words and see mouth movements, their brains link sounds with actions. They try to copy what they see and hear. This connection builds the base for speaking. Some scientists think mirror neurons helped early humans learn speech by watching and copying the mouth shapes and sounds of others. This might be one reason humans can learn language by listening and repeating without formal teaching. People with certain conditions may have problems with mirror neurons. For example, some researchers believe that in autism, the mirror neuron system may not work as expected. This could make it harder for someone to understand facial expressions or tone of voice. It might also affect how they imitate others or feel empathy. Not all experts agree on this point, but it has led to more research into how brain activity relates to social behavior. Mirror neurons do not work alone. They are part of a larger network that includes vision, movement, emotion, and memory. But they seem to act as a bridge between seeing and doing, between action and feeling. They help the brain make fast, useful guesses about what others are doing and why. This helps people respond in real time to what's happening around them. If someone reaches out their hand, your mirror neurons may fire even before you think. You start to reach back. If someone frowns, your face might shift slightly in return. These responses may seem automatic, but they come from deep systems in the brain working together. This makes social life possible. It helps people share meaning without needing to explain every part out loud. Mirror neurons may also help in therapy or care. A person who feels understood may open up more. A helper who mirrors body language or tone may build trust. This is not about copying, but about sharing signals the brain picks up without thinking. When both people feel in tune, change or healing becomes more likely. This happens not just through words, but through shared patterns of thought and movement. The mirror neuron theory does not explain all of human behavior, but it offers a clear and helpful view of how people connect. It shows that the brain is not just a thinking machine. It is built to relate, to watch, and to feel with others. From birth, humans learn by watching. They feel what others feel, and their brains make this possible through systems designed to mirror the world around them. The social brain hypothesis says that human brains evolved to deal with complex social life. This idea comes from the fact that humans live in groups and depend on each other to survive. To do this well, people need to understand what others think, feel, and plan. They also need to keep track of relationships, rules, and group roles. These tasks require brain power. Over time, the brain grew larger and more skilled to manage these demands. The key part of this theory is that social life, not just tool use or hunting, drove the growth of the brain. Scientists who study this idea often look at brain size in primates. They found that species living in bigger, more stable groups tend to have larger brains, especially in areas linked to social thinking. These include the prefrontal cortex, which helps with planning, self-control, and understanding others. Imagine a group of early humans living in a small band of 20 to 50 people. Each person has their own wants and needs. Some are close friends. Some compete for food or status. Others may cheat, help, or gossip. To live well in that group, a person must remember who did what, who to trust, and how to act in each case. They must guess what others might do next. This requires not just memory, but also what researchers call theory of mind, or the ability to imagine someone else's thoughts. Social life also involves alliances. People often work together in pairs or small groups to reach goals. But alliances shift. Friends can become rivals. Rivals may make peace. To keep up, the brain must track who is on whose side and for how long. These social maps can change fast. The brain needs to read small signs like tone of voice, body language, or a glance. Even silence can carry meaning in social life. Storytelling may have played a role in building this kind of brain. Early humans likely shared stories around fires. These stories taught lessons, shared news, and built group identity. To follow a story, the listener needs to understand the characters, their goals, and what they feel. This kind of thinking strengthens social brain functions. It also helps explain why humans remember stories better than facts. Stories fit how our brains evolved to work. Social rules and norms also play a part. Every group has rules. Some are spoken, others are learned by watching. A person must follow these rules to stay in the group. At the same time, they may look for ways to bend them without getting caught. This creates tension. The brain must weigh risks, rewards, and what others might think. These choices involve parts of the brain linked to emotion, memory, and prediction. Gossip is another feature tied to this theory. In human groups, people often talk about others when they are not around. This may seem like a waste of time, but it serves a purpose. Gossip spreads news about behavior. It tells people who to trust, who has broken rules, and who deserves respect. To gossip well, a person must know the details of many social ties. They also need to judge which facts to share and with whom. This kind of thinking shows how much brain work goes into even simple talk. Children show signs of the social brain early in life. Babies pay attention to faces more than other shapes. They try to copy facial expressions. As they grow, they play games that teach them about roles, rules, and teamwork. A game like hide and seek is not just fun. It teaches kids how to guess what others can or cannot see. It builds mental skills that help later in life. School life adds more layers. Children must manage peer groups, handle rules, and work with teachers. Success in these areas often depends more on social skill than raw memory or test scores. A child who knows how to read people and solve group problems may do better in the long run. These skills show how much of school life reflects the social challenges that shaped the brain. Adults also rely on social brain systems at work. In a job setting, people must read meetings, manage team roles, and handle feedback. A person who can predict how a boss or client will react has an edge. This does not mean they manipulate others. It means they understand patterns of human behavior. These patterns go back thousands of years, shaped by the need to survive in groups. Leadership is another example. In any group, someone tends to lead, but leaders must do more than give orders. They must inspire trust, build unity, and respond to group needs. This takes a strong social brain. A leader who reads the group well and acts with care may keep the group stable. One who fails at these tasks may face rebellion or collapse. The brain's ability to manage these roles shows how deeply social needs shaped our mental tools. Conflict and cooperation are both part of this picture. Groups face both often. A person must judge when to compete and when to help. If they help too much, others may take advantage. If they compete too hard, they may get pushed out. The brain must find a balance. It must guide choices based not just on self-interest, but also on how others might act. These choices involve emotion, risk, and long-term memory. Friendship is also key. Humans form strong bonds with people who are not family. These bonds bring safety, support, and joy. They also bring risk. Friends can leave or betray. To build trust, people use signals. These include tone, touch, and shared time. The brain watches for signs of trust or threat. It stores memories of kind acts and broken promises. This deep record helps people decide how close to get or when to pull back. Romance involves even more brain effort. People in romantic ties must handle shared plans, jealousy, and emotion. The brain uses many systems to manage these ties. Hormones play a role, but so do thought and memory. A person in love may focus more on one face or voice. They may replay past moments and plan future ones. This kind of thinking shows how social life shapes both emotion and reason. Even online life fits this model. When people use social media, their brains track likes, shares, and comments, much like they once tracked real faces and voices. The tools may be new, but the brain systems are old. The same skills help people know when to post, what to say, and how to respond. These actions are not random. They reflect deep needs to connect, to be seen, and to stay part of the group. In all these cases, the brain handles many tasks at once. It reads signals, stores facts, weighs feelings, and plans actions. These demands may explain why humans have such large brains for their body size. It takes space and power to run the systems needed for social life. The social brain hypothesis gives a clear reason for this growth. Living in groups shaped the way we think. The Savanna Hypothesis suggests that human intelligence evolved as a response to the challenges of life on the African savanna. This idea connects the development of the human brain with the need to survive in an open, dry environment filled with both danger and opportunity. The savanna is not a forest and not a desert. It is a flat, grassy plain with scattered trees and shrubs. It stretches across large parts of Africa and is home to animals like lions, elephants, and antelope. Early humans or their ancestors lived there millions of years ago. Living on the savanna forced early humans to make new choices. In forests, food is often above ground and shelter is easy to find. On the savanna, food sources are more spread out, and there is less cover from predators. This meant that survival depended on new skills, finding food over long distances, watching for danger in open spaces, and working with others to solve problems. These demands may have helped shape human intelligence. One key change tied to the savanna is bipedalism, or walking on two legs. Fossils show that early hominins began walking upright at least 4 million years ago. This helped them see over tall grass to spot predators or food. It also freed their hands to carry tools, food, or infants. Walking on two legs uses less energy over long distances, which helped with travel across large open areas. These changes supported life in a more scattered, risky landscape. Vision also became more important. On the savanna, being able to detect movement or recognize shapes at a distance could save a life. A person who noticed a lion before it attacked would have a better chance of escaping. This likely favored sharper eyesight and better focus. Depth perception and color vision, useful in forest life, still played a role in spotting ripe fruits or distant threats in grassland areas. Hunting and gathering on the savanna required planning and memory. Food was not always easy to find. People had to remember where fruit trees were located or when certain plants would ripen. They needed to know where animals drank water or when herds moved through an area. This encouraged the growth of brain areas tied to memory and spatial awareness. Those who could make mental maps and recall past experiences likely had more success in finding food and avoiding danger. Tool use became more advanced in these settings. Early humans likely used stones to cut meat, break bones, or dig for roots. Making tools required thinking ahead, choosing the right material, shaping it, and using it in the right way. The savanna did not provide tools naturally. The way a forest might offer sticks or vines. Early humans had to invent new ways to meet their needs. This pressure encouraged problem-solving and innovation, both signs of growing intelligence. Social life also became more important. Life on the savanna involved risk. Lions, leopards, and hyenas posed constant threats. To stay safe, early humans likely formed close groups. They may have taken turns watching for danger or warned others with signals or calls. They needed to share food, raise children, and protect each other. Living in groups required communication and trust. It also created chances to learn from others. A person who watched someone make a better spear could copy the idea. Over time, this built a culture of shared knowledge. Communication may have started with gestures and sounds. As hunting became more complex and group sizes grew, there was a need for clearer signals. A group stalking an antelope had to move together and act fast. This may have pushed the development of early language. Understanding others and being understood offered survival value. It allowed people to plan, teach, and build strong social bonds. These skills helped support larger groups and more stable communities. Weather and climate on the savanna also changed over time. Dry seasons and shifting water sources made the land unpredictable. Sometimes food was scarce. In these times, people had to adapt or move. Those who could adjust plans, find new resources, or invent new tools had a better chance of survival. Flexibility in thought and behavior became key. The brain rewarded those who could think beyond the present moment, see patterns, and act with purpose. Predator pressure played a large role in shaping early human behavior. Unlike forest-dwelling animals, early humans on the savanna could not hide easily. They needed to be alert and able to escape, but they also learned to face threats with teamwork. Groups could throw stones, shout, or wave tools to scare away predators. This meant individuals had to judge situations quickly and act as part of a team. The brain had to process many inputs: movement, sound, emotion, and help people make fast, smart choices. Children raised on the savanna needed years to learn how to survive. They watched adults, copied actions, and played games that built skill. Long childhoods gave the brain time to grow and learn. Parents and elders passed down knowledge. This meant memory and teaching became central to survival. Those who could explain ideas or guide others helped their group. This encouraged further growth of thinking and communication abilities. Shelter building also mattered. On the open savanna, protection from sun, wind, or predators was not easy. People had to choose good spots and use natural materials to create safe places. This called for planning and cooperation. It also required knowledge of tools, trees, and local animals. All of this drew on the brain's growing abilities to think, solve, and remember. Fire use made a major difference. Controlling fire provided warmth, protection, and a way to cook food. Cooking made food easier to chew and digest. It may have helped free up energy for brain growth. Fire also allowed people to stay active at night and gather in groups. Sharing stories or making plans around a fire used and strengthened brain areas tied to language and memory. As humans adapted to savanna life, they faced problems that required more than strength. They needed to plan, predict, invent, and work together. These problems pushed brain development in new directions. Thinking about the future, learning from others, and adjusting to change all became part of everyday life. Even emotional life was shaped by the savanna. Staying calm in a crisis, forming bonds with others, and trusting the group all had survival value. The brain needed to handle fear, anger, and sadness in ways that helped, not hurt. This led to the growth of areas in the brain that manage emotion and guide social behavior. All of these demands, finding food, avoiding danger, working with others, and learning across time, combined to shape the human brain. The savanna did not offer easy life, but its challenges gave rise to the skills that define human intelligence. The Self-Domestication Theory says that humans evolved by choosing traits that made them more cooperative and less aggressive. Unlike animals that were domesticated by people, such as dogs or cows, humans may have done this to themselves. Over time, people who showed calm behavior, worked well with others, and helped their group survive had more children. These peaceful traits slowly became more common in the human population. This process helped shape how humans think, feel, and live with others. The idea comes in part from what scientists know about domesticated animals. When people breed animals to be easier to handle, the animals begin to change in ways beyond behavior. Domesticated dogs, for example, often have smaller skulls, shorter faces, and more playful behavior than wild wolves. Foxes bred for tameness over a few generations also started to show floppy ears, spotted fur, and lower stress levels. These physical changes came along with reduced fear and lower aggression. Humans show some of the same traits. Compared to our ancient relatives like Neanderthals, modern humans have smaller faces, shorter jaws, and rounder skulls. We also tend to be more social, more playful as adults, and more tolerant of strangers. These changes suggest that we followed a similar path, not because another species shaped us, but because we shaped ourselves. Groups may have punished or pushed out individuals who were too violent. Over time, this shifted the mix of traits in the population. Living in groups requires a certain kind of control. In a small group of early humans, one aggressive person could upset the whole system. A person who hit others, stole food, or refused to share created risk for the group. Groups that found ways to deal with these people by shunning them, refusing to mate with them, or in some cases killing them, created a space where calmer people could thrive. This social pressure acted like natural selection. Those who were kind, helpful, and open to working with others had more chances to pass on their genes. Imagine a small band of hunter-gatherers living thousands of years ago. They rely on each other to hunt animals, gather plants, and watch for danger. One member starts fights, ignores rules, and puts others in danger. Over time, the group learns to avoid him. He may not find a partner, or others may refuse to share food with him. Without support, he may not survive. In contrast, a calm and generous person may be welcomed, protected, and trusted. This person's children are more likely to live and pass on those same social traits. The self-domestication theory suggests that this type of social control happened again and again over generations. It favored people who could live in peace, show empathy, and manage anger. The result was a slow but steady change in how humans act and look. Brains began to shift as well. Areas related to emotion, memory, and communication became more active. People learned to read each other's faces, speak in careful tones, and solve problems without violence. Language plays a key role in this process. With speech, people could share plans, warn others, or settle disputes. They could talk about who was fair, who lied, or who helped the group. This made it easier to spread social rules and to judge behavior. A person did not have to see someone do harm. They could hear about it and make choices based on that. Words helped shape behavior, and behavior helped shape evolution. Over time, the human face also changed. Researchers think that less aggressive people tend to have softer, more rounded features. Lower levels of certain hormones, such as testosterone, are linked with these changes. As humans became less violent and more social, their faces may have followed suit. This is similar to what happens in domesticated animals. The link between behavior and physical features is not direct, but it follows a pattern tied to how bodies grow and develop. Another part of this theory is the idea of neoteny. This term means keeping youthful traits into adulthood. Domesticated animals often show this. Puppies stay playful, and even adult dogs act like young wolves in many ways. Humans do this too. Adult humans play, laugh, and explore in ways that most adult primates do not. This long period of learning and curiosity may have helped early humans build complex societies. A childlike mind is open to new ideas and better at working with others. This made humans more flexible and more able to adapt. Cooperation gave groups an advantage. Groups that shared food, cared for the sick, and raised children together had better chances of survival. This made traits like trust, patience, and fairness more valuable. Over time, those traits became more common. The brain had to grow to handle these new social needs. People needed to remember past favors, track friendships, and guess what others were thinking. These demands pushed the brain to grow in size and complexity, especially in the areas tied to social understanding. This theory also helps explain why violence still exists. Self-domestication reduced harmful aggression, not all aggression. Humans still defend themselves and their groups. They still compete for status or resources. But the type of violence most common in other species, sudden, deadly attacks within the group, is far less common in humans than in some other primates. This suggests that the kind of aggression selected against in early human groups was the kind that broke social trust and damaged cooperation. In modern life, people still use many of the tools shaped by self-domestication. They avoid conflict through speech. They form large networks of trust, even with strangers. They teach children to manage anger and care for others. These traits continue to shape how people live and relate to each other, even in large cities. Most people follow rules, respect personal space, and work together in teams. These actions rest on brain systems that evolved long ago under the pressure to live peacefully. People with high social skills often do well in many parts of life. They can form strong relationships, handle stress, and help their communities. These same skills were likely key to survival in the past. The ability to cooperate, calm others, and build trust made a person more likely to succeed and raise children. Over many generations, these patterns shaped the human species into what it is today. In some ways, humans act more like domesticated animals than wild ones. They form large groups, avoid unnecessary fights, and spend much of their time in social exchange. The self-domestication theory suggests that this is not an accident. It is the result of many generations choosing, shaping, and supporting traits that make peace and cooperation possible. By selecting each other, people slowly turned into a more social and less aggressive species. This path shaped the brain, the face, and the way people connect. The bipedalism theory says that walking on two legs helped shape human evolution in deep and lasting ways. One of the most important effects was that it freed the hands. Once early humans no longer needed their arms to move around, they could use their hands for other tasks, especially making and using tools. This shift gave rise to new behaviors, which placed new demands on the brain. Over time, those demands helped push brain development forward. Bipedalism is one of the oldest human traits. Fossils show that some of our early ancestors were walking upright at least 6 million years ago. These early hominins had changes in their hips, knees, spine, and feet that made two-legged walking more stable and efficient. At first, they may not have walked fully upright all the time, but as the environment changed and forests gave way to grasslands, bipedalism became more useful. It allowed early humans to move across open ground more easily, spot predators in tall grass, and carry food or infants over long distances. The main effect of bipedalism was what it did for the hands. Other primates use their hands for climbing or walking. Humans do not. Once hands were free, early humans began to use them for gripping, shaping, and striking. Over time, this led to tool use. The earliest stone tools date back at least 2.5 million years. These tools were simple at first, sharp flakes used to cut meat or break bones, but they marked a turning point. They let early humans access new food sources, such as marrow from inside bones or tough plants that needed to be processed. Using tools required more than just physical skill. It also required planning. A person had to choose the right kind of stone, strike it in the right way, and then carry it for future use. This meant they had to think ahead. They had to remember where good stone could be found and how to use it when the need came. These mental tasks made the brain work harder. They rewarded people who could solve problems, stay focused, and learn from others. Tool-making also helped drive learning through imitation. A young member of the group might watch an older one make a tool and then try to do the same. This kind of learning helped spread knowledge. It also built social ties as teaching and helping became more valuable. Over time, groups with better tool users had more food and more protection. This gave them an edge, which helped those traits, manual skill, focus, and social learning, become more common in the population. As tools got better, the brain had to keep up. Making a hand axe, for example, takes dozens of careful strikes and a sense of symmetry. It shows that the toolmaker had an idea of what they wanted before they began. This kind of abstract thinking is closely tied to brain growth. Fossil records show that as tools became more complex, so did the shape and size of the human brain. One part that grew was the prefrontal cortex, which helps with planning, decision-making, and self-control. Another major effect of bipedalism and free hands was the ability to carry objects. Early humans could gather food and bring it back to a central place. This led to more sharing and group living. It also meant that individuals could save tools for later use or bring tools from one place to another. This idea, saving, storing, and using tools over time, shows a shift toward more complex thinking. It also marks the beginning of a more settled lifestyle, even before farming. Carrying also applied to infants. Human babies are born earlier in development than other primates because of the size of the human brain and the shape of the birth canal. As a result, they need more care and for a longer time. Bipedal parents could carry their young in their arms while still moving around. This close contact may have strengthened bonds between parents and children and helped with the spread of language and social skills. Speaking of language, some scientists think bipedalism played a role there as well. The position of the head and the shape of the throat changed as humans walked upright. These changes may have allowed for a wider range of vocal sounds. Language made it easier to teach tool use, share plans, and warn about danger. It also helped build strong groups based on shared ideas and goals. As language grew more complex, the brain had to grow to manage it, leading to even more development. Hands themselves changed over time. Fossil evidence shows that early humans had more precise grips than other primates. Their thumbs were longer and stronger, and their fingers were better suited for fine control. These changes made it easier to shape tools, thread plant fibers, or make fire. They also allowed for more delicate tasks, such as sewing or carving. All of these behaviors required not just physical ability, but mental focus, memory, and creativity. Social life also benefited from bipedalism. Free hands allowed for gestures, which may have been an early form of communication. Even before spoken language, people could use hand signals to show direction, need, or emotion. This helped groups work together and reduce the risk of conflict. Over time, these forms of expression became more refined and likely helped pave the way for spoken words. As the brain grew, it required more energy. This led humans to seek out high-calorie foods, such as cooked meat and fat. Cooking helped with digestion and allowed more energy to go toward brain function. But cooking also required fire, which meant controlling a dangerous force. Keeping a fire going, protecting it, and using it for shared meals brought groups closer together and gave rise to new roles and rules within those groups. Each of these steps, tool use, planning, learning, sharing, and language, built on what came before. And all of them rested on one key change: walking upright. Without bipedalism, the hands could not have been used so freely. Without free hands, tools would not have developed in the same way. Without tools, the brain would not have faced the same kinds of challenges. In this view, the act of walking on two legs did more than change how humans moved. It changed how they thought, worked, and lived together. The grandmother hypothesis says that human women live long past their childbearing years because they help raise their grandchildren. This help increases the chances that those grandchildren survive. Over time, these supportive grandmothers made a real difference in the success of the group. Their presence gave families an edge, allowing more children to grow up and have families of their own. This theory offers a clear reason why human females have a long post-menopausal life, which is rare in the animal world. In most mammals, once females stop reproducing, their role in the group fades. But in humans, many women live for decades after menopause. The grandmother hypothesis suggests that this extended lifespan evolved because older women still added value to their families and communities. They did this not by having more children, but by helping their daughters and sons raise the next generation. Imagine a small group of hunter-gatherers moving through the savannah thousands of years ago. A young mother has several children, including a baby and a toddler. She needs to find food, keep her children safe, and manage daily survival tasks. Her ability to do all this on her own is limited. Now, add her mother to the picture. This older woman can help carry the baby, prepare food, or watch the other children. Her support frees the young mother to gather more food or recover from childbirth. This leads to better health and higher chances of survival for all her children. This kind of help is especially important in humans because human children are slow to grow and need care for many years. A child may not be able to feed or protect themselves until age 5 or older. In most animals, young grow fast and become independent quickly. In humans, development takes longer, which means parents need more support. Grandmothers help fill this gap. Their role lets young mothers have children closer together, which increases the total number of children they can raise. Studies of modern hunter-gatherer groups give strong support to this idea. In some communities, researchers have found that the presence of a grandmother increases the number of surviving grandchildren. For example, in the Hadza people of Tanzania, grandmothers often help by digging up and preparing tubers, a tough but calorie-rich food. Children can't dig these up on their own, and mothers with babies may not be able to do it either. But grandmothers step in. Their work gives everyone more food and leads to better health for children. Other studies have shown that when grandmothers are present, children are more likely to survive to adulthood. This has been observed not only in modern hunter-gatherers, but also in historical records from farming societies. Grandmothers often lived close to their children and played a daily role in childcare. In cases where the maternal grandmother died early, survival rates for young grandchildren dropped. This suggests that their help had a real effect. The grandmother hypothesis also helps explain a major feature of human life: long lifespans. In many species, lifespan closely matches the years of fertility, but in humans, women can live 30 years or more after menopause. If older women were simply a burden, natural selection would not favor such long life. But if they helped their families, then longer life would be an advantage. Groups with helpful grandmothers would do better over time. Their children would grow up, have more children, and pass on the genes for long life and supportive behavior. This theory also connects to the way human families are structured. Unlike many animals that raise young on their own, human children often grow up in large networks of support. Parents, siblings, aunts, uncles, and especially grandparents all play a part. This shared effort reduces the load on any one person and increases the chances that children will make it to adulthood. The grandmother is often at the heart of this system, offering both knowledge and direct help. Older women also bring other benefits. They know where food can be found, how to prepare it, and how to avoid danger. They remember seasons, patterns, and past events. Their experience can guide group choices, especially in hard times. For example, if a drought hits, a grandmother may recall how the group survived a similar event in the past. She may know where to find hidden water or how to make tools that help with survival. These skills are not just useful, they can mean the difference between life and death. Grandmothers also shape culture. They tell stories, teach values, and pass on skills. A young girl learning how to weave or cook may learn from her grandmother more than anyone else. These lessons help keep the group's way of life alive. They also build strong emotional bonds between generations. These bonds support cooperation, trust, and care, which all help the group function more smoothly. In some animals, a similar pattern can be seen, but it is rare. Female orcas, or killer whales, also live long after they stop reproducing. Researchers have found that older female orcas guide their pods and help their relatives find food, especially in times when prey is hard to find. These actions help their descendants survive, just like human grandmothers. This makes humans and orcas two of the few species where females have long post-reproductive lives. Still, the grandmother hypothesis is not the only idea about why humans live so long. Some scientists think that long life benefits men too, or that it helps build strong social groups. But the grandmother role is unique. It focuses on what older women do for their direct descendants, especially grandchildren. It is based on the idea that natural selection favors traits that help with survival and reproduction, even if the help comes indirectly. This theory also helps explain differences in how long men and women live. In most parts of the world, women live longer than men. This may be because evolution favored longer life in women more strongly. If older women helped their families survive, then natural selection may have supported genes that gave women longer, healthier lives. Men also help with childcare in many groups, but the long post-reproductive phase is more clearly seen in women. One more point the theory makes is about how help is given. The effect seems strongest when grandmothers help their daughters' children. This pattern matches human biology. Women are always related to their children, and they know for sure who their daughters are. Helping their daughters' kids guarantees that they are passing on their genes. This may be one reason why maternal grandmothers often play a stronger role in childcare than paternal ones. In daily life, the impact of grandmothers can still be seen. Across many cultures, grandmothers cook, watch children, and teach life skills. They often step in when parents are busy or struggling. Their presence helps hold families together and adds a layer of care that supports health and stability. Whether in rural villages or busy cities, their value continues. This long pattern of support may go back to the very roots of what makes us human. Dual inheritance theory says that human behavior is shaped by both genetics and culture. It argues that we inherit two streams of information, one through our genes and one through the culture we grow up in. This theory explains how humans are different from other animals, not only in what we do, but in how we learn, share, and change across generations. It brings together biology and social learning to explain how human behavior evolves. Genes carry instructions from parent to child. They shape our bodies, brains, and basic instincts. We inherit genes from our parents the same way other animals do. These genes affect our physical traits, like eye color, and also our mental traits, like the ability to speak or remember. But humans pass along more than just genes. We also pass along stories, tools, habits, languages, and customs. These things are not in our DNA. They are part of our culture, and we learn them from other people. Cultural information can spread much faster than genes. A new tool or idea can move through a group in a few weeks or months. It does not need to wait for someone to have children. People can copy others, teach each other, or pick up habits by watching. This kind of learning allows for fast change and helps people adjust to new problems. Over time, useful cultural traits can become part of a group's way of life, just as helpful genes become more common through natural selection. Imagine a group of early humans living in a dry area with few trees. They struggle to find food. One person figures out how to make a digging stick to reach roots underground. Others see this tool and start to use it. Soon, many people in the group carry digging sticks. They get more food and stay healthier. This gives them an edge, even though no one's genes have changed. The tool becomes part of their culture, and children grow up learning how to make and use it. Now imagine that using this tool requires a certain kind of grip. Over time, people who have better hand strength may use the tool more easily. They get more food and are more likely to survive and have children. In this case, a cultural trait, the tool, has created a new pressure on genes. Those with helpful genes for hand strength do better. This shows how culture can affect genetic evolution. It also shows why the two systems are linked. Dual inheritance theory focuses on these links. It says that genes and culture work together. Sometimes culture changes first and genes follow. Sometimes genes give rise to new cultural traits. Either way, both systems shape behavior. They also shape each other in a feedback loop. The more culture humans developed, the more their brains needed to grow to handle it. And as brains grew, people became better at culture. Each one pushed the other forward. Language is a strong example. Humans are born with the ability to learn language. This trait is genetic, but we don't inherit any one language. We learn the one spoken by the people around us. That is culture. A baby born in Japan will learn Japanese. A baby born in Spain will learn Spanish. The genetic part gives us the tools for speech. The cultural part fills in the words, grammar, and meaning. Both are needed for language to work. Cooking is another example. It began as a cultural behavior, learning to use fire to make food soft and safe. This gave people more energy from the same food. Over time, this allowed the human gut to shrink and the brain to grow. Cooking changed what the body needed from food. Culture shaped biology. That shift helped humans get more value from their meals and allowed more time for thinking and socializing, which led to more culture. Religion, clothing, farming, and music are other areas where culture guides behavior. People don't need new genes to plant crops or wear shoes. They learn these actions from others. But over time, these habits may shape how the body works. Wearing shoes changes how we walk. Farming changed what people ate and led to changes in teeth, height, and disease resistance. Even something like alcohol tolerance may reflect a long history of living in farming communities, where drinks were made from fermented grains. One of the key points in this theory is that cultural evolution follows its own rules. In genetics, traits spread based on how they help people survive and reproduce. In culture, traits can spread for many reasons. Some spread because they are useful. Others spread because they are easy to remember, pleasing to see, or tied to powerful leaders. A popular song may have no survival value, but still spread across the world. In this way, culture has its own logic and its own form of selection. Still, cultural traits often compete, just like genes. If two farming methods are taught in a village, the one that leads to better crops is more likely to be copied. The other may fade. This is like natural selection in genes. But in culture, the change happens faster. People can try both methods and pick the one that works best. This makes culture a powerful tool for adapting to new challenges. Social norms also guide behavior through culture. These are rules people follow without needing to think. They include things like how to greet others, what to eat, and how to dress. Children learn these by watching and copying adults. This learning happens early and shapes how they act for life. In many cases, breaking a norm can lead to punishment, even if the action causes no real harm. This shows how culture sets boundaries and encourages shared behavior. Culture is passed through teaching, imitation, and communication. People don't just learn by chance. They choose who to copy. Often, they copy those who are skilled, successful, or respected. This form of selective learning helps useful ideas spread more quickly. It also makes social learning more effective, as people focus on what works and who knows best. Dual inheritance theory also explains why human societies can change without any genetic shift. A new farming method, a tool, or a way of organizing work can spread across a region and reshape how people live. These changes can happen in just a few generations. They can make old skills useless and bring new ones into demand. The people themselves are not different in body or brain, but the culture around them has changed how they act and think. This theory helps us understand why humans are both flexible and stable. Our genes give us a strong base. We walk upright, use language, and form families. But our culture lets us change fast. We live in cities, fly in planes, and write on computers. These two systems, genetic and cultural, work together to shape who we are. By passing on both, we build a world that goes beyond what genes alone could create. Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a theory about what drives human behavior. It says that people are motivated to meet different kinds of needs, and these needs are arranged in a specific order. The most basic needs come first. Once those are met, people begin to focus on other needs, moving step by step through the levels. At the top of the hierarchy is self-actualization, which means reaching one's full potential. This theory helps explain why people act the way they do and how their goals can change over time. At the bottom of the hierarchy are physiological needs. These are the basic things the body needs to survive: air, water, food, shelter, sleep, and warmth. If someone is starving or freezing, their focus will stay on those problems. They won't care much about friendship or learning a new skill until they feel safe and fed. Imagine a person lost in the desert. They won't spend time thinking about their career goals. They will focus only on finding water and staying alive. Once they meet these survival needs, their attention can move to the next level. The second level is safety needs. These include both physical and emotional safety. People want protection from violence, disease, and accidents. They also want stable jobs, secure homes, and a sense of order. For example, someone living in a war zone or facing eviction will likely focus on finding safety before they worry about social status or personal growth. A parent raising a child may work long hours to afford a home in a safer neighborhood. That drive comes from the need to protect the family and ensure a stable environment. After safety comes the need for love and belonging. Humans are social creatures. They seek friendship, family, and community. This level is about feeling connected and accepted. People want to be part of a group. They want to feel close to others and to know that others care for them. A person who has food and shelter but feels lonely may become depressed or anxious. They may seek out clubs, friendships, or romantic relationships to fill this need. Teenagers, in particular, often work hard to fit in with peers. Their behavior may change as they try to meet this social need. The fourth level is esteem. Once people feel connected to others, they start to seek respect. They want to be seen as capable and valued. This need comes in two forms: self-respect and respect from others. People want to feel proud of what they do. They also want others to recognize their worth. This can lead to efforts to build skills, get promotions, or earn praise. A student who has a good home and strong friendships may now focus on getting high grades to prove their ability. A worker who feels part of a team may seek leadership roles to gain recognition. The final level is self-actualization. This is the desire to become the best version of oneself. It involves using personal talents, seeking truth, creating art, or helping others. It's not about showing off. It's about feeling fulfilled. Each person's idea of self-actualization may be different. One person may want to write a novel. Another may want to raise children with care. A third may want to travel and learn about the world. What matters is that the person feels they are growing and living with purpose. This top level is the hardest to reach. It depends on meeting the lower levels first. If a person faces sudden job loss or illness, they may drop back to focus on safety needs again. Maslow said this movement is normal. People may go up and down the hierarchy as life changes. A young artist may focus on self-actualization, but if they lose housing, they may shift attention back to finding shelter and income. The hierarchy is not rigid, but it shows how needs often build on one another. Maslow's theory also applies to groups and workplaces. In a job setting, employers often try to meet these levels in order. First, they provide fair pay and safe working conditions. That meets physiological and safety needs. Next, they may encourage teamwork and social events, meeting the need for belonging. Then, they offer praise, raises, or job titles to meet esteem needs. Finally, they may give employees room to take on projects that match their skills and passions. A company that understands these layers may help workers stay motivated and satisfied. School systems can follow the same path. A child needs food, sleep, and a sense of safety before they can learn well. Programs that offer free meals and counseling help meet those lower needs. Teachers who build trust and allow students to feel heard support the need for belonging. Giving students goals, feedback, and chances to lead can build esteem. And letting students explore ideas, ask questions, and create helps them reach for self-actualization. Even in daily life, the hierarchy shows up. Think of someone who goes on a long hike. They pack food, water, and gear for safety. During the hike, they enjoy the company of others and share stories. Reaching the top of the trail brings a sense of pride. They feel strong and capable. At the top, they pause to take in the view and feel a sense of peace. That feeling may be a brief moment of self-actualization, being in the right place, doing the right thing, and knowing it matters. Maslow's theory does not say people never care about higher needs until lower ones are fully met. A hungry artist may still create beautiful work. A lonely person may still act with courage. But the theory shows what most people tend to focus on when needs go unmet. If a person is cold, sick, or alone, that lack will often shape their choices. Meeting the lower needs makes it easier to pursue higher ones. Maslow later added another layer above self-actualization, called self-transcendence. This involves connecting to something larger than the self, such as a cause, a belief, or the well-being of others. A person may find meaning in service, faith, or deep concern for future generations. They act not just to fulfill themselves, but to lift others or protect the world. This idea builds on the earlier levels, but expands the focus beyond the individual. The hierarchy helps explain why people's goals change across their lives. A child starts with basic needs. A teen may focus on friends and identity. An adult may seek respect at work. Later in life, a person may look for meaning or try to give back. These changes follow the same structure. People rise through the levels as their lives become more stable and full. Maslow's hierarchy of needs offers a clear model of how people grow. It links survival to purpose. It shows that we are more than just our basic needs, but also that those needs matter. Without food, safety, and love, the higher goals become harder to reach. But once those needs are met, the drive to grow, create, and connect takes center stage. Freud's structural model of the mind explains human behavior as the result of three parts working together: the id, the ego, and the superego. These are not physical parts of the brain. They are mental systems that shape how we think, feel, and act. Freud believed that much of what drives us lies below the surface in the unconscious mind. This means we are often unaware of the real reasons for our choices, fears, and emotions. The id is the oldest part of the mind. It is present from birth. It runs on the pleasure principle, which means it wants what it wants right away. It does not think about rules, time, or other people. The id is filled with basic drives like hunger, thirst, sex, and the need to avoid pain. When a baby cries for food, it is the id in action. The baby does not care if the parent is asleep or busy. It only wants to feel better. The id works through impulses and feelings, not thought or reason. The ego develops a little later. It starts to form as a child interacts with the world. The ego works on the reality principle. Its job is to help the person get what they want, but in ways that are safe, acceptable, and realistic. The ego deals with the outside world. It uses logic, planning, and problem solving. If the id says, "I'm hungry," the ego says, "Let's wait until lunch." If the id wants to hit someone out of anger, the ego steps in to say, "That's not a good idea." The ego is the part of the mind that tries to balance different needs. It listens to the id's demands, but it also listens to the superego. The superego is the part that holds moral values. It develops as the child learns right from wrong, often by copying parents or other authority figures. The superego acts like a judge. It tells us when something is wrong or shameful. It can make us feel proud when we do the right thing, or guilty when we do something wrong. The superego wants perfection, not just safety. These three parts often pull in different directions. The id says, "Do it now." The superego says, "Don't do it at all." The ego says, "Let's find a middle path." This creates inner conflict. Much of this conflict happens without our awareness. We may feel anxious, angry, or sad without knowing why. Freud believed these feelings come from the ego trying to handle the pressure from both sides. For example, think about a person at work who is passed over for a promotion. Their id might feel rage and want to yell or quit. Their superego might say it's wrong to feel anger or envy. The ego has to manage both feelings. It may push the anger out of awareness to avoid guilt, but the feeling doesn't vanish. It may show up later as stress, stomach pain, or snapping at others at home. This is how unconscious conflict can shape behavior. Freud said that the ego uses defense mechanisms to deal with these pressures. These are mental strategies that protect the person from painful thoughts or feelings. One common defense is repression. This means pushing a memory or wish out of conscious awareness. Another is projection, where a person sees their own unwanted feelings in someone else. A person who feels jealous may accuse others of being jealous instead. There's also displacement, where a person directs feelings at a safer target. If someone is angry at their boss, they might go home and argue with their partner instead. These defenses are not lies. They are ways the ego keeps things under control. They help the person avoid emotional pain or social trouble, but they can also cause problems if overused. A person who always represses anger may develop anxiety. Someone who relies on denial may avoid needed change. Freud believed that therapy could help bring unconscious conflicts into awareness, so the person could deal with them more directly. Freud's model can also explain childhood development. In early life, the id is strong, and the ego and superego are still forming. As a child learns what is allowed and what is not, they begin to internalize values. This forms the superego. The child also learns how to wait, think, and adjust their behavior. This builds the ego. If this process goes well, the child grows into an adult who can balance personal needs with social rules. If something goes wrong, like harsh punishment or neglect, it may leave lasting effects on how the ego and superego function. Take the case of a child who grows up with strict parents. The child may develop a very strong superego. They may feel guilty for small mistakes or worry too much about doing the right thing. On the other hand, A child with no clear limits may grow up with a weak superego. They may act on impulse and struggle with rules. Both cases show how early experiences shape the balance between the id, ego, and superego. Freud's theory also touches on dreams. He believed that dreams show the hidden wishes of the id. Because the superego and ego do not allow certain desires into daily thought, those wishes come out in dreams in disguised form. A dream about climbing may reflect a wish for success. A dream about being chased may hide a fear or desire the ego cannot accept. Freud called this the royal road to the unconscious. He thought that by studying dreams, people could learn more about their inner world. Everyday slips of the tongue, now called Freudian slips, also reveal unconscious thoughts. A person might say the name of a former partner by mistake, or say one word when they meant another. Freud saw these mistakes as signs of inner conflict. The ego tries to stay in control, but the id and superego can still affect what we say or do. Freud's model shows that human behavior is not simple. It is the result of deep forces within the mind. We may think we act for one reason, but another reason may lie below the surface. The id pushes for desire. The superego holds us to moral standards. The ego tries to keep peace between them and handle the outside world at the same time. This struggle shapes much of how we think and act, even when we are not aware of it. Carl Jung's idea of the collective unconscious says that all humans inherit a deep layer of the mind filled with shared patterns, symbols, and ideas. He believed that this part of the unconscious is not shaped by personal experience, but comes from our common human past. It holds what he called archetypes, basic images or themes that appear across cultures and time. These might include the mother, the hero, the shadow, and the wise old man. Jung argued that these archetypes shape how people think, dream, and behave, even if they are not aware of it. The collective unconscious is different from the personal unconscious. The personal unconscious includes forgotten memories, repressed thoughts, or feelings too painful to face. These come from one's own life. The collective unconscious, by contrast, is inherited. It is part of being human. Jung thought of it as a kind of mental blueprint passed from one generation to the next. It holds patterns that are the same in everyone, no matter where they are born or how they are raised. Take the mother archetype as an example. Across many cultures, people tell stories of a nurturing figure who offers comfort, protection, and life. She may appear as a goddess, a saint, or a strong woman in a folktale. The details change, but the role stays the same. Jung believed this pattern exists because humans have always depended on others, especially mothers, for survival. The idea of the mother became a deep part of the collective unconscious. The hero is another common archetype. This figure usually faces danger, overcomes trials, and grows stronger in the process. Think of Hercules in Greek myth, King Arthur in British legend, or modern superheroes like Superman. Even though these stories come from different places, they follow a similar path. The hero leaves home, faces struggles, wins a key victory, and returns changed. Jung called this pattern the hero's journey. He believed it reflects how people grow through life's hardships. The shadow is a darker archetype. It holds the parts of ourselves we don't want to admit: fear, anger, selfishness, and desire. Jung said the shadow lives in the unconscious because it holds feelings and traits that society teaches us to hide. But the shadow still affects behavior. It may come out in dreams, slips of the tongue, or sudden mood changes. Facing the shadow can be hard, but also brings growth. Jung believed that by accepting and understanding this part of the self, a person can become more whole. Another key figure in the collective unconscious is the wise old man or woman. This archetype gives guidance, offers knowledge, and helps the hero find their way. In stories, this role might be played by a wizard, a mentor, or a spiritual guide. Think of Gandalf in The Lord of the Rings, Dumbledore in Harry Potter, or even Yoda in Star Wars. These characters give more than advice. They help the hero grow up and understand the world. Jung believed that archetypes show up most clearly in dreams. He worked with patients to explore dream symbols and patterns. He found that certain images came up again and again, even in people who had never read the same stories or lived in the same culture. A patient might dream of a cave, a snake, or a storm. Jung saw these not as random images, but as symbols linked to deeper meanings. A cave might represent the unknown. A snake could stand for change or danger. A storm might reflect inner turmoil. By working with these symbols, people could gain insight into their own lives. Art, religion, and myth also reflect the collective unconscious. People in every culture create stories and images that follow certain patterns. A painting of a mother and child, a tale of a trickster who breaks the rules, or a sacred symbol like the circle or cross. All of these may come from the same deep source. Jung believed that these creations are ways the unconscious speaks to the conscious mind. They carry meaning even when people do not fully understand why. The collective unconscious is not about specific memories. It does not mean people remember past lives or know ancient myths by birth. Instead, it holds the form of certain ideas. It's like a mold, waiting to be filled with details. For example, a child might play with dolls or draw family members without being taught the meaning of family. The archetype of family is already there. The child fills in the faces, names, and actions from life, but the structure is inherited. This theory helps explain why people often feel drawn to certain stories or symbols. A person might be moved by a tale of a lost child finding their way home, even if they've never been lost themselves. They may feel fear when they see a shadowy figure in a film, even if they know it's fiction. These reactions are not just learned. They come from shared patterns buried deep in the mind. The collective unconscious also helps people connect across differences. A myth from one culture may still touch someone from another. A ritual or piece of music may stir deep feelings, even when the person does not know its meaning. This suggests that human minds share more than language or customs. They share a structure built over thousands of years of common experience. Jung's work with archetypes became a tool for personal growth. He believed that people could become more balanced by getting to know the parts of themselves shaped by the collective unconscious. This process, which he called individuation, means bringing hidden parts of the self into awareness. A person might explore their dreams, reflect on favorite stories, or pay attention to strong emotions. Through this, they might discover hidden strengths, fears, or desires. This self-knowledge could lead to a fuller, more honest life. For example, a person might notice that they often avoid conflict and always try to please others. By exploring this pattern, they might find that they carry a strong inner image of the good child, someone who behaves, follows rules, and earns love through kindness. This image may be part of their personal history, but it also connects to the collective idea of innocence and approval. By facing this pattern, the person can choose how to act, rather than being ruled by an unconscious need. Jung did not claim that the collective unconscious works like a machine. It is more like a deep current flowing under the surface of thought. People feel its pull through symbols, instincts, and reactions that are hard to explain. It shapes the way they see the world, choose partners, raise children, or search for meaning. It speaks through stories, dreams, and the deep emotions that rise without warning. By learning to listen to these messages, people may come closer to understanding themselves and others. Attachment theory says that the emotional bonds formed between infants and their caregivers shape how people feel and relate to others for the rest of their lives. This theory began with the work of John Bowlby, who studied how young children respond when separated from their parents. He believed that early attachments are not just emotional habits, but part of human survival. A child who stays close to a caregiver is more likely to be fed, protected, and comforted. This bond gives the child a sense of safety, which becomes the foundation for later development. In the first year of life, babies start to form an attachment to the person or people who care for them most. Usually, this is a parent, but it could also be a grandparent, sibling, or someone else who provides consistent care. The baby learns that this person is the one who shows up when they are hungry, cold, scared, or in pain. Over time, a baby builds trust that this person will keep them safe. When the bond is secure, the child feels free to explore the world, knowing they can return for comfort if needed. Researchers have studied how these early bonds form by observing how babies respond when their caregiver leaves and then returns. In one study, called The Strange Situation, psychologist Mary Ainsworth placed young children in a room, let them play, then briefly removed the caregiver and watched what happened when they came back. The child's reaction showed what kind of attachment they had. Some children showed what's called secure attachment. When the caregiver left, the child became upset, but calmed down quickly when the caregiver returned. These children trusted that their needs would be met. They explored the room, but checked in with their caregiver. In daily life, securely attached children tend to show confidence, curiosity, and comfort in relationships. Other children showed insecure attachment. One type is avoidant attachment. These children didn't seem to care much when the caregiver left or returned. They often acted independent, but not because they felt safe. Instead, they had learned that showing needs didn't bring a helpful response. Another type is ambivalent or anxious attachment. These children became very upset when the caregiver left and weren't easily comforted when the caregiver returned. They clung to the caregiver, but also showed anger or confusion. This pattern may come from inconsistent care, where the child is unsure what to expect. There's also a disorganized attachment style. These children showed behavior that didn't follow a clear pattern. They might freeze, run away, or act fearful when the caregiver returned. This often happens in situations where the caregiver is a source of both comfort and fear, such as when there is abuse, neglect, or unpredictable behavior in the home. These early patterns don't stay locked in place, but they can shape how people relate to others later in life. A child with secure attachment is more likely to form healthy relationships, show empathy, and manage stress well. As adults, they may trust others, handle conflict calmly, and feel comfortable with both closeness and independence. In contrast, people with avoidant attachment might struggle with closeness. They may keep others at a distance, avoid emotional talk, or shut down during conflict. Those with anxious attachment may worry about being rejected, seek constant reassurance, or become upset when a partner pulls away. People with disorganized attachment may feel confused in relationships, struggle with trust, and swing between wanting closeness and fearing it. These patterns are not choices. They form early based on how the brain responds to care. A baby whose cries are met with warmth learns that people are safe. A baby whose needs are ignored or met with anger learns that people can't be trusted. These lessons become mental maps for how relationships work. They guide what a person expects from others, how they handle strong feelings, and how they express their own needs. Attachment also affects how people parent. A person who grew up with secure attachment may find it easier to comfort their own children, set limits with care, and respond to emotional needs. Someone with insecure attachment may struggle to do these things. They may overreact to stress, avoid showing emotion, or pass on anxiety without meaning to. But people can also change. With support, reflection, and new experiences, attachment patterns can shift. Therapy, close friendships, and healthy romantic relationships can all help reshape these patterns over time. In adult life, attachment shows up in many ways. A person with a secure style might enjoy time alone, but also value deep connections. They might seek feedback, handle breakups with sadness but without collapse, and feel safe asking for help. An avoidant person might say they don't need anyone, struggle to say "I love you," or pull away when things get too close. Anxious people may text constantly, fear being left, or feel empty when alone. Disorganized attachment can lead to emotional outbursts, confusion in love, or a deep fear of both connection and loss. These behaviors are not fixed labels. They are ways the mind tries to stay safe based on early lessons. Someone who pulls away in relationships may have learned that asking for comfort led to pain. Someone who clings may have learned that love is uncertain and must be chased. These patterns can feel automatic, but they are not unchangeable. Awareness is the first step. A person who sees their pattern can begin to ask if it still fits their life now. Attachment theory also helps in understanding mental health. Anxiety, depression, and relationship struggles often tie back to attachment wounds. When someone feels unworthy of love, fears rejection, or avoids closeness, they may not know why. Looking at early bonds can offer answers. It can also guide healing. Secure relationships, whether in therapy or daily life, can provide new experiences. When someone learns that another person is reliable, kind, and steady, the brain begins to adapt. Over time, the person may learn to trust, express feelings, and feel safe in connection. Even in simple daily moments, attachment plays a role. A child calling out for a parent, a friend offering comfort after a bad day, a couple reaching for each other during a fight, all reflect how deeply attachment shapes behavior. It is not just about childhood. It is about how humans stay connected across a lifetime. Understanding attachment means seeing behavior not as weakness or fault, but as a response to early care. It shows that people seek safety, comfort, and love in the ways they were first taught. Some do this by reaching out, others pull back, some do both. At the core of each pattern is the same human need to feel safe with others. Theory of mind is the ability to understand that other people have thoughts, beliefs, feelings, desires, and intentions that are different from one's own. This skill allows people to predict how others might behave based on what they know or believe, not just on what is true. It also helps people explain actions by thinking about what someone else wants or feels, even when that information is hidden or incorrect. Theory of mind plays a key role in communication, empathy, and social life. This ability develops during early childhood. Around the age of 4, most children begin to understand that other people can hold false beliefs. Before that, they often assume that others know whatever they know. For example, if a child sees that a toy has been moved from one box to another, they may think someone who is not in the room also knows about the move. They do not yet grasp that others can hold a belief that is no longer true. Once they develop theory of mind, they can say, "She thinks the toy is still in the first box," even though they themselves know it has been moved. One common way to test this ability is through a task called the false belief test. In one version, a child watches as a puppet named Sally places a marble in a basket and leaves the room. While Sally is gone, another puppet moves the marble to a box. The child is then asked where Sally will look for the marble when she comes back. A child who has developed theory of mind will say, "Sally will look in the basket, because that is where she left it, and what she believes." A child without theory of mind may say she will look in the box, because that is where the marble really is. They cannot yet separate their own knowledge from Sally's belief. Theory of mind allows people to take someone else's point of view. It makes it possible to say, "He must be scared," or "She probably thinks I'm angry." This is more than just noticing behavior. It means imagining what is happening in another person's mind. This helps with solving problems, avoiding conflict, and building strong relationships. It also helps people work together toward shared goals. If someone understands what others think or want, they can adjust their actions in helpful ways. Adults use theory of mind in everyday situations. If a coworker seems quiet during a meeting, someone might guess that he is nervous or distracted. They might offer support or change how they speak. If a friend forgets a birthday, a person might think, "She's been very busy, she didn't do it on purpose," rather than assuming she doesn't care. These small shifts in thinking are based on the ability to imagine the mental state of another person. Theory of mind is also important in reading and storytelling. When people read novels or watch films, they follow characters' thoughts and motives. They guess what a character knows or fears. This allows them to enjoy plot twists, feel suspense, or feel empathy. A character only lies to another character, and the viewer knows it's a lie. This works because the audience can track both what the character believes and what is actually true. Without theory of mind, these layers of meaning would not make sense. This ability is not only about others, it includes thinking about one's own mind. People use theory of mind to reflect on their own beliefs, to judge whether they were fair, or to decide what they want. It is a key part of self-awareness. It helps people plan, remember past actions, and understand how they change over time. Thinking, "I used to believe that, but now I know more," shows the same ability to hold more than one mental state in mind. Some people have difficulty with theory of mind. Children with autism spectrum disorder often struggle with it, especially when they are young. They may have trouble guessing what others know, feel, or intend. This can lead to misunderstandings or confusion in social situations. It may also make it harder to form close relationships or respond to emotional cues. Some people with autism learn to manage these challenges by developing other skills, but the basic difficulty in reading minds may remain. Brain research shows that certain areas of the brain are active when people use theory of mind. These include the temporoparietal junction and the medial prefrontal cortex. These areas help process social information, recognize faces, and track what others are doing. Damage to these areas through injury or illness can reduce the ability to read others' minds. This shows that theory of mind is not just a skill, but a brain-based process. The roots of theory of mind may go back to early human evolution. Living in groups required cooperation and trust. People who could guess what others were thinking had an advantage. They could spot lies, predict moves in a fight, or form alliances. These skills helped early humans build social bonds and solve problems as a group. Over time, this led to the growth of larger and more complex societies. The ability to track many different minds became a basic part of being human. Some animals show early forms of theory of mind. For example, chimpanzees can follow another animal's gaze or guess where food is hidden based on what someone else saw. But these skills are limited. Most animals do not seem to understand false beliefs or complex motives. Humans take this ability much further. They can hold many points of view at once, reflect on what others think of them, and imagine thoughts that have never been spoken. In games, children practice theory of mind by pretending. A child may act as if a doll is scared or hungry. They may say, "He doesn't know we're hiding," during hide and seek. This kind of play teaches them how minds work. They learn that people can feel one thing and show another. They learn how to surprise, comfort, or mislead. These lessons build the base for more complex thinking later in life. People also use theory of mind in moral reasoning. If someone makes a mistake, others judge not just the action, but the intention. If a person meant well but failed, they may be forgiven. If they caused harm on purpose, the reaction is stronger. This depends on knowing what the person was thinking, not just what they did. Children learn this as they grow. At first, they focus on outcomes. Later, they start to ask, "What was he trying to do?" or "Did she mean to hurt me?" Language helps support theory of mind. Words like think, feel, hope, know, or believe allow people to talk about mental states. When children learn these words, they get better at talking about their own minds and guessing what others mean. Parents who use these words often help their children build social understanding. Saying things like, "How do you think she feels?" or "Why do you think he said that?" guides children to look beyond behavior and think about motives. Theory of mind is part of what makes human relationships work. It helps people connect, forgive, learn, and cooperate. It allows them to form bonds, tell stories, and build shared meaning. Without it, life becomes harder to understand and trust becomes fragile. Whether in school, work, or family life, this quiet skill shapes how people relate to one another every day. Behaviorism, as developed by B.F. Skinner, explains human actions as the result of rewards and punishments. It does not focus on thoughts, feelings, or intentions. Instead, it looks at what people do and what happens after they do it. Skinner believed that behavior is shaped by consequences. If an action brings a good result, people are more likely to repeat it. If it brings a bad result, they are less likely to do it again. Skinner called this process operant conditioning. In operant conditioning, a behavior becomes more or less common depending on what follows it. A reward, or reinforcement, makes the behavior stronger. A punishment makes it weaker. This pattern can be seen in simple and complex actions. It works with both animals and humans. Skinner built his theory using experiments with animals, especially rats and pigeons. He placed them in a controlled box, now called a Skinner box. The box had a lever or a button. When the animal pressed it, something would happen. If pressing the lever gave the animal food, it would press the lever more often. If pressing the lever caused a mild shock, the animal would stop pressing it. This showed that behavior changes based on the result. This same idea applies to human life. Think of a child who cleans their room and then gets a smile or a treat from a parent. That positive result makes the child more likely to clean again. Or think of a worker who gets a bonus for finishing a project early. The reward makes the worker want to repeat that behavior. On the other hand, if a student talks in class and gets scolded, they may stop talking during lessons. That punishment weakens the behavior. Skinner broke reinforcement into two types: positive and negative. Positive reinforcement means adding something good after a behavior. For example, giving praise, money, or a gift. Negative reinforcement means taking away something bad after a behavior. This might be removing a loud noise or stopping a nagging reminder. Both types make the behavior more likely to happen again. Punishment also comes in two forms. Positive punishment means adding something unpleasant, like extra chores or a fine. Negative punishment means taking away something pleasant, such as screen time or a toy. Both types of punishment aim to reduce unwanted behavior. Skinner also studied how timing affects learning. He found that immediate consequences have more power than delayed ones. A reward that comes right after the behavior has a stronger effect than one given later. This helps explain why people may choose short-term pleasure over long-term goals. If the reward is far away, it may not influence behavior as much. Another part of Skinner's work was the idea of schedules of reinforcement. This refers to how often a behavior gets rewarded. A fixed schedule means the reward comes after a set number of actions or a set amount of time. A variable schedule means the reward comes after a changing number of actions or time. Skinner found that variable schedules often create stronger behavior. For example, slot machines pay out on a variable schedule. People never know when the win will come, so they keep playing. This pattern keeps the behavior going, even when rewards are rare. Behaviorism also applies to education. Teachers can shape student behavior by using praise, grades, and other forms of feedback. A teacher who gives quick and clear praise for correct answers helps students learn faster. If students know what behavior leads to a good result, they are more likely to repeat it. Clear rules and consistent consequences help create a stable learning environment. In therapy, behaviorism led to new ways of helping people change habits. A person who wants to stop smoking might get a reward every day they go without a cigarette. A child with a fear of dogs might get tokens or stickers for being near a dog without running away. Over time, these rewards shape the behavior step by step. This kind of treatment is called behavior modification. It uses the same principles Skinner studied in his lab. Behaviorism also plays a role in workplaces. Managers use bonuses, praise, and promotions to shape employee behavior. Clear feedback about what works and what doesn't can guide people to do their jobs more effectively. If a boss only gives attention when things go wrong, employees may avoid taking risks or may become discouraged. If a boss gives regular positive feedback, employees may work harder and feel more motivated. Some people think behaviorism is too narrow. They say it ignores thoughts and feelings. Skinner did not deny that people have thoughts. He just believed they were not useful for explaining behavior. He saw thoughts as another kind of behavior, shaped by the same rules. To him, the most reliable way to understand people was to watch what they do and what happens afterward. For example, if someone says they feel anxious, Skinner would look at what triggered that feeling and what the person does in response. Maybe they avoid certain places. If avoiding the place reduces the anxious feeling, that behavior is being reinforced. The key is not the feeling itself, but how the environment shapes the person's actions. Skinner also believed that behavior is not free. He argued that people do not make choices freely in the way they think. Instead, behavior is determined by past rewards, punishments, and the current situation. If a person chooses to help a stranger, Skinner would ask what past experiences or present rewards made that action likely. He believed that by changing the environment, people's actions could be changed. In parenting, behaviorism offers simple and useful tools. Parents who use clear and consistent rewards and consequences can guide their children's behavior near effectively. For example, giving a child a sticker each time they brush their teeth without being asked helps build the habit. Taking away a privilege when a rule is broken teaches that actions have consequences. Over time, these patterns shape the child's sense of what is expected. Even small actions follow this pattern. A person who smiles and gets a smile back may smile more often. A person who jokes and gets laughed at may tell more jokes. These small social reinforcements guide much of what people do without them even realizing it. The brain tracks rewards and adjusts behavior without needing deep thought. Skinner's work showed that behavior can be studied and changed without guessing what is in the mind. By looking at what people do and what follows, we can learn what shapes their actions. Whether in schools, homes, clinics, or jobs, the use of rewards and punishments continues to guide behavior in ways Skinner helped to explain. Cognitive dissonance theory explains how people deal with the mental discomfort they feel when they hold two conflicting beliefs or when their actions go against their values. The theory says that people are driven to reduce this discomfort by changing their beliefs, changing their actions, or finding ways to explain the difference. Leon Festinger developed this theory in the 1950s. He showed that people will often go to great lengths to make their thoughts and actions line up because inconsistency feels uncomfortable. The basic idea is simple. When someone notices a gap between what they believe and what they do, it creates tension. This tension is not just a thought. It feels like pressure or unease. People want to resolve it. They want to feel consistent and whole. That's why someone who sees themselves as honest may feel bad after lying. Their belief and their action do not match. That bad feeling, called dissonance, motivates them to fix the problem. Imagine a person who believes smoking is unhealthy but still smokes. Every time they light a cigarette, they may feel uncomfortable. Their mind holds two opposing ideas: smoking can harm me, and I smoke every day. That conflict creates dissonance. To reduce the discomfort, the person might change the behavior and stop smoking, or they might change their belief, telling themselves that the risks are overstated. They might also try to justify their behavior with thoughts like, "It helps me relax," or "My grandfather smoked and lived to 90. These steps all aim to restore harmony between beliefs and actions. Cognitive dissonance does not only apply to health habits, it shows up in many areas of life. Take someone who sees themselves as environmentally responsible, but drives a gas-guzzling car. That person might feel dissonance every time they think about pollution. To reduce that tension, they might start recycling more, drive less, or buy carbon offsets. Or they might downplay the harm caused by their car. The goal is the same: reduce the conflict and feel better. In one famous study, Festinger and his team asked participants to do a boring task and then lie to the next person by saying it was fun. Some participants were paid $1 to lie. Others were paid $20. Later, the people who got just $1 said they actually liked the task more than the people who got $20. This sounds strange, but dissonance theory explains it. The $1 group had very little reason to lie. So to reduce the conflict, they convinced themselves the task wasn't so bad. The $20 group had a clear reason: money. They didn't feel the same need to adjust their beliefs. This shows how people can change what they believe to match what they do, especially when they can't find another way to explain the gap. Dissonance often shows up after people make big choices. If someone picks one job over another, they may start to notice the bad parts of the job they didn't choose and focus on the good parts of the one they did. This is called post-decision dissonance. It helps people feel better about their choices and avoid regret. Without this, a person might feel stuck, wondering if they made the wrong move. Social situations can also bring dissonance. If a person wants to fit in with a group that holds different values, they may change their behavior or beliefs to match. For example, someone who values honesty may start to tell small lies to please their friends. At first, this feels wrong, but to reduce dissonance, the person may decide that these lies are harmless or even kind. Over time, the belief may shift to match the new behavior. Dissonance can lead to growth, but it can also lead to excuses. Sometimes people don't want to change their behavior, so they change their beliefs in ways that are not helpful. A person who cheats on a test may say, "Everyone does it," or "The test was unfair." These thoughts ease the discomfort, but allow the behavior to continue. In this way, dissonance can support both good and bad habits, depending on how people resolve it. The strength of dissonance depends on a few things. One is how important the beliefs are. A person who sees honesty as a core value will feel more dissonance after lying than someone who doesn't care as much. Another factor is how much control the person feels they have. If someone is forced to act against their values, they may feel less tension because they don't see it as their choice. The more choice and responsibility a person feels, the stronger the dissonance when their actions conflict with their values. Cognitive dissonance also plays a role in learning and change. When people face new information that goes against what they already believe, they may feel uncomfortable. That discomfort can push them to think more deeply or seek new answers. A student who believes the world is flat may feel dissonance when shown clear evidence that it is round. The student might reject the evidence at first, but over time, the need to reduce the conflict may lead them to update their belief. This process can be slow and difficult, but it often leads to more solid understanding. In relationships, dissonance can affect how people treat each other. A person who sees themselves as kind but treats their partner poorly may start to justify their actions. They might say the partner deserved it or that it wasn't really mean. These justifications reduce the dissonance but may stop the person from facing their behavior. On the other hand, noticing that conflict can also push someone to change. They may start to treat others better to match their view of themselves. In the workplace, dissonance can show up when job demands go against personal values. A worker who sees themselves as honest may feel tension if asked to mislead a customer. They might reduce that dissonance by leaving the job, speaking up, or convincing themselves that it's not a big deal. Companies that want ethical behavior can reduce dissonance by creating clear values and making sure actions match those values. Cognitive dissonance also helps explain why people defend beliefs even when faced with strong evidence to the contrary. A person who believes deeply in a political idea may ignore facts that challenge that belief. They may look for other facts that support their view or question the source of the new information. This doesn't mean the person is lying. They are trying to reduce the discomfort that comes from seeing their belief under threat. Festinger's theory offers a simple but powerful view of human behavior. People want to feel consistent. They want their actions and beliefs to match. When they don't, it creates discomfort. That discomfort pushes people to make a change by adjusting beliefs, changing actions, or finding a reason to explain the gap. This process is not always easy, and it does not always lead to truth, but it is a key force behind how people think, decide, and grow. Howard Gardner's theory of multiple intelligences says that intelligence is not just one general ability measured by a test. Instead, he argued that people have many types of intelligence, each with its own strengths and ways of solving problems. This idea challenges the older view that intelligence is mostly about math, logic, or language skills. Gardner's theory helps explain why some people struggle in school but succeed in music, sports, or social situations. It also shows that people can be smart in different ways and that these different abilities all matter. One of the best-known types of intelligence is linguistic intelligence. This involves skill with words, both spoken and written. People with strong linguistic intelligence may enjoy reading, writing, telling stories, or learning new languages. A poet, novelist, or speaker often shows this kind of intelligence. For example, a child who can tell a detailed story or use a wide range of vocabulary likely has a strong linguistic ability. Teachers often focus on this type of intelligence because it plays a big role in reading and writing, which are central in many school systems. Another type is logical mathematical intelligence. This is the ability to think clearly, reason well, and work with numbers. Scientists, engineers, and mathematicians often use this intelligence in their work. People with strong logical skills may enjoy puzzles, experiments, and problem solving. They may notice patterns quickly or ask deep questions about how things work. A child who enjoys building structures or solving number games likely uses this kind of intelligence. Schools often focus on this area too, especially in math and science classes. Gardner also described musical intelligence. This includes the ability to hear, produce, and understand sound patterns, rhythms, and tones. Musicians, composers, and singers often show this type of intelligence. A person with musical intelligence might remember tunes easily, tap along with rhythms, or show a strong emotional reaction to music. A child who learns better through songs or makes up melodies while playing may have a strong musical sense. This kind of intelligence is often overlooked in regular classroom settings, even though it plays a key role in many cultures and careers. Bodily kinesthetic intelligence is another type. It involves using the body skillfully to express ideas or solve problems. Athletes, dancers, and surgeons often use this intelligence in their work. People with strong bodily intelligence may learn best by doing rather than sitting still. They may enjoy hands-on tasks, sports, or crafts. A child who learns how to ride a bike quickly or who prefers building things with their hands likely shows this form of intelligence. This type is often seen in physical activities, but also appears in areas like acting and fine motor tasks. Visual spatial intelligence deals with the ability to think in images, shapes, and space. People strong in this area may be good at maps, drawing, puzzles, or visualizing things in their head. Architects, designers, and pilots often use this intelligence. A child who enjoys drawing scenes, solving mazes, or rearranging furniture in a room may be using spatial thinking. Schools may support this kind of intelligence in art class or geometry, but it often plays a quiet role in everyday learning. Interpersonal intelligence involves understanding and interacting well with others. It includes the ability to read facial expressions, tone of voice, and body language. People strong in this area often become teachers, counselors, or leaders. They can sense what others need, how they feel, and how to respond. A child who resolves conflicts on the playground or who easily makes friends likely has strong interpersonal skills. This kind of intelligence helps in group work and in building social networks, though it may not be tested directly in school. Intrapersonal intelligence is the ability to understand oneself. It involves being aware of one's feelings, thoughts, and values. People strong in this area often reflect deeply and make choices based on inner goals. Writers, philosophers, and therapists often show this kind of intelligence. A child who keeps a journal, sets goals, or shows strong self-control may be using intrapersonal skills. This intelligence helps with personal growth, decision-making, and emotional regulation, though it may not be visible to others. Gardner later added naturalistic intelligence. This involves recognizing patterns in nature, classifying living things, and working well with the environment. Farmers, botanists, and environmentalists use this kind of thinking. A person with strong naturalistic intelligence may enjoy hiking, gardening, or observing animals. A child who collects rocks, knows bird calls, or notices weather changes may show this type of skill. This intelligence may not appear in traditional academic tests, but it plays a real role in how people relate to the natural world. Each of these intelligences works in its own way. Some people may show strength in one area, while others have a mix. For example, a person may be strong in both music and logic, or in bodily skill and interpersonal ability. These areas are not fixed. They can grow over time with practice and support. A child who struggles with reading may still shine in art or sports. A student who finds math difficult may be great at helping others. Gardner's theory reminds us that there is no single way to be smart. This idea has practical uses in education. A teacher who knows that students have different strengths can offer many ways to learn. For example, a lesson on the water cycle might include a written story, linguistic, a diagram, spatial, a group discussion, interpersonal, a song, musical, or an experiment, bodily kinesthetic. This approach gives each student a chance to connect with the material in a way that suits their strengths. It also helps students see value in their abilities, even if they don't match traditional academic skills. Outside school, this theory helps explain how people find success in different areas of life. A chef uses bodily, spatial, and intrapersonal intelligence. A mechanic uses logic and hands-on skill. A coach uses interpersonal and bodily strengths. A parent uses many types of intelligence every day. Gardner's theory helps people see that success is not limited to those who do well on tests. It depends on knowing one's strengths and using them well. Gardner's work does not say that everyone is good at everything. Instead, it shows that people have different kinds of potential. Intelligence is not a single path. It is a wide field with many ways forward. Some people may not do well in school, but go on to build strong careers using other types of intelligence. Others may discover their strengths later in life. The key idea is that intelligence is not just about solving math problems or writing essays. It's about how people understand the world, solve problems, and create meaning in different ways. Flow theory, developed by Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, explains a mental state where people feel fully focused, deeply involved, and satisfied with what they are doing. In this state, time seems to pass quickly, distractions fade away, and the activity feels rewarding in itself. People often call it being in the zone. Flow happens when a person works toward a clear goal, uses their skills to meet a challenge, and gives full attention to the task. According to Csikszentmihalyi, these moments are among the most meaningful and enjoyable in life. Flow is not the same as relaxation or passive enjoyment. It requires effort, attention, and skill. A person in flow is not coasting. They are stretching their ability, but not to the point of frustration. The task is not too easy and not too hard. This balance is the key. If a task is too simple, the person becomes bored. If it is too hard, they feel anxious or overwhelmed. Flow happens in the middle, when challenge and skill are closely matched. Take the example of a rock climber scaling a difficult wall. Every move demands focus. One slip could lead to failure, but each step forward brings progress and confidence. The climber is not thinking about dinner plans or phone messages. Their mind is on the rock, the next hold, the weight shift. Minutes can feel like seconds. There is no room for doubt or distraction. This is a clear example of flow. The challenge is real. The goal is clear. The feedback is immediate. Every action leads to the next. Flow can happen in many areas of life. Artists may feel it while painting, musicians while playing, athletes during games, and programmers while writing code. It can also happen in everyday tasks like cooking, gardening, or even cleaning, if the person is fully focused and the task has a goal. Flow does not depend on the activity itself, but on how it is done. A task that brings flow for one person may feel dull or hard for another. What matters is the match between challenge and skill, and the attention the person gives to it. The flow experience has several common features. The first is deep concentration. The person becomes absorbed in what they are doing. Other thoughts fade away. They are not worried about time, self-image, or outside problems. This level of focus makes the work feel smooth and natural. Second, flow involves clear goals. The person knows what they are trying to do and can track their progress. They are not confused or unsure about the point of the activity. A basketball player wants to score. A chess player wants to win. A writer wants to finish a page. The goal helps keep attention on the task and makes each step feel meaningful. Third, flow includes immediate feedback. The person knows right away if they are doing well. This may come from the task itself, like hitting the right note in a song or solving a tough math problem. Or it may come from the body, like the feel of balance while skiing. This feedback helps the person adjust their effort and stay engaged. Fourth, flow creates a sense of control. The person feels able to handle the task. They may not succeed every time, but they feel they can make progress. This feeling is not about power or dominance. It is about confidence in the process. A dancer does not control the music, but can still move with it. A surgeon cannot stop time, but can still focus on the steps of the operation. Fifth, flow reduces self-consciousness. The person is not thinking about how they look or what others think. They are not worried about failing or making mistakes. Their sense of self becomes quiet. They act without second-guessing. Later, they may look back and see how focused they were, but in the moment, their sense of ego fades. Sixth, flow alters the sense of time. Hours may pass without notice. A person might start drawing in the morning and look up to see it's already afternoon. This happens because attention is fully on the task, not on the clock. Time becomes tied to the rhythm of the activity, not to the outside world. Last, flow feels rewarding. The activity brings a sense of joy or satisfaction, even without external rewards. A person may paint for hours, not for praise or money, but for the pleasure of painting. Flow itself becomes the reason to keep going. Csikszentmihalyi found that flow is not limited to people with special talents. It is available to anyone who finds the right match of challenge and skill. A teenager playing video games, a doctor in surgery, or a gardener planting flowers can all experience flow. What matters is full engagement. This means reducing distraction, having clear goals, and finding tasks that are neither too hard nor too easy. Flow can also support growth. When people work at the edge of their ability, they improve. They learn new skills, take on harder challenges, and gain confidence. Flow makes this learning feel natural. A person who feels flow while writing may write more often and take on harder topics. A student who finds flow in math may enjoy practice and push themselves further. Over time, these experiences build not just skill, but also a stronger sense of purpose. Flow is linked to happiness, not just in the moment, but over time. People who often feel flow tend to report higher life satisfaction. They feel more focused, capable, and connected to what they do. Flow can also help protect against stress and anxiety. When people are deeply involved in meaningful activity, they have less room for worry or boredom. Even hard tasks can feel good if they bring flow. Workplaces can support flow by giving employees clear goals, helpful feedback, and tasks that match their skills. Jobs that include choice, challenge, and support are more likely to create flow. Schools can do the same. When students work at the right level of difficulty and feel supported, they are more likely to enjoy learning. Even chores at home can bring flow if the person stays focused and sets small goals. Flow is not something people can force. It grows best when people do what they care about, take time to focus, and face a challenge with the right skills. It may take effort to set up the right conditions, turning off phones, finding quiet, choosing the right task. But once it begins, the experience can carry a person forward. What makes flow special is not just the focus, but the meaning. In flow, people feel alive. They are not just passing time, they are using it well. They are not watching life happen, they are part of it. Each moment of flow builds a sense of purpose, not because someone told them what to do, but because they chose to engage deeply with something that matters to them. Terror management theory says that the fear of death shapes much of human behavior. People know they will die someday. This knowledge creates anxiety. It is not always felt on the surface, but it is there in the background. To manage this fear, people turn to systems of meaning. These include culture, religion, values, and beliefs that give life a sense of purpose and offer the idea that some part of the self will continue after death. By feeling part of something larger and lasting, people ease their fear of dying. This theory comes from the work of psychologists who studied how people react when reminded of death. They found that even subtle reminders, such as passing a cemetery or writing about one's own death, can change behavior. People become more defensive of their beliefs. They may act more harshly toward those who are different. They may show stronger loyalty to their group or nation. These reactions suggest that the fear of death leads people to protect the things that give them meaning. One way people deal with this fear is by holding on to cultural worldviews. These are the shared beliefs that explain how the world works, what is right and wrong, and what gives life value. A worldview may come from religion, tradition, or personal belief. It tells people who they are and how they fit into the world. It also tells them what will last beyond their own life. A person may believe in an afterlife, in leaving a legacy, or in contributing to a larger cause. These beliefs give comfort by creating the sense that death is not the end of all meaning. Religion is a common way people manage the fear of death. Many religions offer stories of life after death, whether in heaven, rebirth, or another form. These stories reduce anxiety by giving death a purpose or a next step. Religion also connects people to a community and to a moral order that feels stable and eternal. Following religious rules, attending rituals, and believing in divine power can all help people feel that they are part of something greater than themselves. But not all responses to death involve religion. Some people find meaning in work, art, or family. They may focus on achievements, children, or creative projects that will outlive them. A teacher may pass on knowledge. An artist may leave behind a body of work. A parent may feel that their children carry part of them forward. These goals create a sense of symbolic immortality. The person feels that their life matters and that something of them will continue. Terror management theory explains why people care so much about being remembered. Names on buildings, awards, books, or public service can all serve as ways to extend the self beyond death. Even sharing ideas or values can have this effect. A person may say, "I want to be known as someone who stood up for others," or "I hope my work makes a difference." These hopes ease the fear of being forgotten or erased. The theory also helps explain some common behaviors. When people feel threatened, especially by reminders of death. They often react by clinging more tightly to their group identity. They may become more patriotic, more religious, or more loyal to their community. They may also act more harshly toward outsiders, critics, or people with different views. These reactions protect the worldview that gives them a sense of order and meaning. For example, in one study, people were asked to think about their own death. Later, they were asked to judge someone who either praised or criticized their country. Those who had thought about death gave stronger praise to the supporter and harsher judgment to the critic. They were protecting their cultural identity. Similar patterns appear with religion, politics, and other deeply held beliefs. When people feel reminded of death, they defend the ideas that make them feel safe. This does not mean that people are always aware of these motives. The fear of death often works in the background. People may not say, "I'm doing this because I'm afraid to die," but their actions suggest that they are trying to feel stable, valuable, and connected to something lasting. These needs become stronger when death becomes more visible, such as during war, disaster, illness, or personal loss. Terror management theory also gives insight into conflict. When two groups hold different worldviews and both feel threatened, the fear of death can make compromise harder. Each side may see the other as not just wrong, but dangerous. They may believe that their own values must be defended at all costs. This can lead to violence, exclusion, or division. Understanding the fear behind the reaction may help reduce tension, but it requires people to feel secure enough to listen and reflect. The theory also touches on self-esteem. When people feel good about themselves, they are better able to manage the fear of death. Self-esteem acts as a buffer. It comes from feeling like a good person by the standards of one's culture. If someone is told they are doing well in school, being a good parent, or helping others, that sense of worth helps reduce anxiety. But if someone feels like a failure, outcast, or burden, they may feel the fear more strongly. This is why praise, recognition, and belonging can have such a strong impact. A person who feels valued and needed may feel less afraid. A person who feels alone or rejected may struggle with meaning. Programs that support connection, purpose, and self-worth can help people face life and death with more strength. Mental health care, education, and community life all play a role in building these supports. In daily life, the effects of terror management can be small but steady. A person may avoid talking about death or quickly change the subject. They may seek out familiar routines, follow rituals, or invest in beliefs that feel solid. When someone close dies, the survivor may reflect more on life, make changes, or feel the need to live more fully. These are signs that the awareness of death can shape life choices. Even humor, art, and storytelling help manage this fear. A joke about death can ease tension. A film about loss can offer comfort. A story about sacrifice can remind people of values worth living for. These forms of expression allow people to face death indirectly, in ways that feel safe and shared. Terror management theory does not say that fear of death is the only reason people do things. People have many motives, but it points to one powerful source of action that often goes unnoticed. By facing the fear of death and finding meaning in life, people gain a sense of peace and direction. They connect to others, build lasting things, and try to make their time matter. This effort shapes culture, belief, and the ways people live and relate to each other. Tabula Rasa is a theory developed by the philosopher John Locke. The phrase means blank slate in Latin. Locke believed that people are not born with built-in ideas or knowledge. Instead, he argued that the mind starts as an empty surface, waiting to be written on by experience. This idea challenged older beliefs that humans are born with certain truths already in their minds. According to Locke, everything we know comes from what we see, hear, touch, taste, and smell as we move through life. Locke's theory starts with the claim that there are no innate ideas. Innate ideas are things people supposedly know without learning them. Ideas like justice, beauty, or truth. Some philosophers believed these ideas came from God or were part of human nature. Locke rejected this view. He said that if people had such ideas from birth, all people would agree on them. But in real life, people disagree often, and in many ways. This shows that knowledge must come from somewhere else. Locke pointed to experience as the source. He divided experience into two kinds, sensation and reflection. Sensation comes from the five senses. When a baby sees light, hears a sound, or feels warmth, those moments make up their first experiences. Over time, these build the foundation of knowledge. Reflection, on the other hand, is the mind's way of looking inward. It allows a person to notice their own thoughts, emotions, and decisions. Both sensation and reflection help the mind grow and fill in the blank slate. Imagine a child who has never seen fire. One day, the child touches a candle flame. The pain teaches them something real. Fire is hot and can burn. No one needed to tell them. The experience wrote itself onto the blank slate. Later, the child might think about that moment and remember how it felt. That memory is reflection. Over time, more events like this shape the child's mind. Locke also believed that language plays a major role in shaping thought. A baby does not know the meaning of words. They learn language through hearing others speak. Each word links to an idea formed from experience. For example, the word dog becomes linked to the furry, barking animal the child sees in the park. The more the child hears the word and sees the animal, the stronger the connection becomes. In this way, words help organize and label the experiences that fill the blank slate. Locke's view means that differences among people come not from something they are born with, but from what happens to them after birth. A child raised in a loving home will learn different things than one raised in fear. A person exposed to music from a young age may become a skilled musician. Another who grows up around books may grow into a strong reader. These skills and traits are not built in. They develop over time through what the person sees, hears, and does. This theory also supports the idea that education is powerful. If the mind is blank at birth, then teaching can shape it in almost any direction. A good teacher can help build strong habits, clear thinking, and moral character. A poor teacher may leave a child confused or fearful. Locke believed that education should focus not just on books and facts, but also on teaching children how to think clearly and act with reason. He thought habits formed in childhood could shape a person for life. Tabula Rasa also suggests that people are responsible for what they become. Since experience builds the mind, people must think about what they expose themselves to. Reading good books, thinking carefully, and learning from others can help someone grow wiser. Surrounding oneself with noise, distraction, or false ideas can shape the mind in harmful ways. Each experience leaves a mark, and those marks add up over time. Critics of this theory have raised questions. Some point out that babies seem to show preferences very early in life. For example, newborns may prefer to look at faces rather than random shapes. They may respond more to the sound of a human voice than to other sounds. These behaviors suggest that the mind may not be completely blank at birth. There may be basic patterns or instincts built into the brain. Still, Locke's idea remains influential because it highlights how much learning shapes who we become. Think of two children born on the same day. One is raised in a small fishing village. The other grows up in a large city. As they grow, their minds fill with different scenes, sounds, and social rules. One learns the tides, how to tie knots, and how to mend a boat. The other learns how to ride a subway, follow city laws, and move through crowded streets. Neither child was born with this knowledge. Each learned it from the world around them. The idea of tabula rasa also plays a role in debates about fairness and opportunity. If all people are born with blank minds, then differences in success or behavior must come from experience, not nature. This view supports the idea that people should be given equal chances to learn and grow. It says that anyone, given the right tools and support, can reach their potential. It also suggests that society should focus on providing good education, healthy environments, and safe communities. Locke's theory also affects how people think about crime and punishment. If a person becomes violent or dishonest, Tabula Rasa suggests that their experiences led them there. This does not remove blame, but it invites a deeper look. What events, lessons, or lack of guidance shaped their behavior? Understanding this may help prevent future harm. It may also guide how to help people change and grow after making mistakes. In mental health, Tabula Rasa reminds us that minds are shaped by what happens to them. Trauma, neglect, or loss can leave deep marks. Support, care, and knee experiences can help heal those marks. People are not fixed. Their minds are always in motion, shaped by what they take in and how they reflect on it. This view brings hope. It suggests that no one is beyond change. Locke's theory may not explain every part of human nature, but it gives a strong starting point. It tells us that minds are built, not born. It reminds us that every word spoken to a child, every story told, and every lesson given writes something on the slate. Over time, these marks form the person, their thoughts, their habits, and their view of the world. Humanism is a way of thinking that places value on human life, reason, and personal growth. It does not rely on the idea of a god or divine being to give life meaning. Instead, it focuses on what people can do through their own efforts, choices, and understanding. Humanists believe that humans have worth, dignity, and the ability to shape their own lives. They see people not as flawed or in need of salvation, but as capable of learning, improving, and helping others. This way of thinking developed over time, especially during the Renaissance. At that point in history, scholars began to study ancient texts from Greece and Rome. These texts often showed humans as thinkers, artists, and citizens with power over their own fate. The humanists of that era saw value in reason, debate, and education. They believed that understanding the world and ourselves could make life better. Modern humanism grew from these early ideas and was shaped by science, democracy, and the belief in human rights. It centers on the belief that people are responsible for solving problems. This includes problems in ethics, politics, health, and relationships. Humanists trust reason and evidence more than tradition or religious authority. That does not mean they reject all religion. Some humanists are religious in a cultural or personal sense, but they believe that human beings must decide how to live. A basic part of humanism is the idea that each person has dignity. This means every life matters. A person does not need to earn dignity. They are born with it. A poor child in a war zone, a scientist in a lab, an artist in a small town, each person has the same basic worth. From this belief grows the idea of human rights. If each person matters, then each person should be treated with respect. This means having freedom, safety, and the chance to make a good life. Humanism also teaches that people can grow. Growth here does not mean just physical change. It means learning new things, gaining insight, building skills, and becoming more aware of others. A person who struggles with anger can learn how to respond with calm. A student who fails can find new ways to study. A parent who once felt unsure can learn how to support their child. None of this depends on a miracle. It comes from effort, reflection, and support. Education plays a large role in this growth. Humanists believe that access to knowledge helps people make better choices. When a person learns to read, they can understand laws, explore ideas, or enjoy stories. When a person learns science, they can make informed health choices or contribute to new discoveries. When someone studies history, they gain insight into the roots of conflict and the value of peace. Education does not just pass along facts, it teaches people how to think. Another key idea in humanism is empathy. Humanists do not believe we need commands from above to care about others. They say that we understand pain and joy because we are human. If we see someone suffer, we can imagine how that feels. That shared feeling becomes the reason to help. If a child cries from hunger, most people do not ask what religion the child is. They see the child's need and respond. Humanists say that this kind of moral sense can guide people toward fair and kind behavior. At the same time, humanism does not promise that people will always act well. It is not naive. It knows that humans can be cruel, selfish, or careless. But it also believes that these are not fixed traits. People can reflect, change, and do better. A person who once caused harm can learn from that harm. A society that once excluded some people can work to become more fair. Progress is not automatic, but it is possible. In everyday life, humanism shows up in many ways. A nurse stays late to comfort a dying patient, not because of a commandment, but because she cares. A teacher helps a struggling student learn to read, not to earn a place in heaven, but because they believe in the child's potential. A group of neighbors cleans up a park, not for a reward, but because they value shared spaces. These acts come from the sense that life matters now and that helping others improves the world we all live in. Humanism also respects choice. People have different views on what makes life meaningful. One person may find purpose in helping others. Another may find it in art, nature, or family. Humanists say that as long as a person respects others and does not cause harm, they should be free to choose their path. No one way of life fits all. This belief supports freedom of speech, freedom of belief, and freedom of lifestyle. Because of this, humanism often supports democracy. It sees open debate and shared decision-making as ways to respect all voices. It also values fairness in law. Each person, no matter their background, should be treated equally. Justice is not about pleasing a god, but about upholding dignity. Science and reason are also central to humanist thought. Humanists trust evidence. They believe that we understand the world by asking questions, testing answers, and changing our views when new facts arise. This method has led to great advances in medicine, technology, and knowledge. It has also helped challenge false claims and harmful traditions. Humanism supports science not as cold logic, but as a tool for human good, a vaccine that saves lives, a method that feeds more people, or a device that helps someone see. These are achievements grounded in reason and aimed at human well-being. At the same time, humanism values the arts. Beauty, creativity, and expression are not just extras in life. They help people understand each other, share emotion, and explore meaning. A painting, a poem, or a piece of music can move someone deeply. It can open a window into another life or another way of seeing. Humanists believe that art is one way people search for truth and share their inner world. In times of crisis, humanism encourages people to act with courage and care. It does not offer supernatural comfort. Instead, it offers solidarity and shared strength. After a loss, humanists may grieve together, remember the one who died, and find meaning in how they lived. After a disaster, humanists may come together to rebuild, not because they are told to, but because they see the need and feel the connection. Some critics say humanism lacks something spiritual, but humanists respond that meaning does not need to come from beyond. It can come from love, kindness, growth, and connection. A parent rocking a child to sleep, a scientist making a breakthrough, a stranger offering help. These moments carry meaning without needing a divine source. Humanism asks people to look around, see what matters, and act with care. It calls on reason, not rules from above. It calls on empathy, not fear of punishment. It calls on the human mind and heart to build lives of purpose, with full awareness of our limits and strengths. This view sees the present as precious and people as capable, not perfect, but always able to learn, grow, and reach towards something better. Existentialism is a way of thinking that starts with a hard truth. Life has no built-in meaning. The universe does not tell us why we are here or what we should do. There's no clear map, no fixed rules handed down from beyond. This view can feel uncomfortable, even frightening. But it also opens a door. If there is no set meaning, then people are free to create their own. They are not trapped by fate, tradition, or the expectations of others. They are responsible for shaping their lives through the choices they make. This idea became well known in the 20th century, especially through writers and thinkers like Jean-Paul Sartre, Simone de Beauvoir, and Albert Camus. They wrote during times of war, loss, and moral confusion. They saw that many old systems, religion, politics, social order, could not explain the deep questions people asked about life and death, guilt and freedom. They did not offer simple comfort. Instead, they said, we must face the truth. We are on our own, and it is up to us to decide how to live. Existentialism says that existence comes before essence. In other words, people are born first, and only later do they define what they are. There is no fixed human nature or purpose written into us at birth. Instead, each person makes themselves through action. A person is not a good parent, artist, or leader just because they claim the title. They become one through how they live. If someone wants to be honest, they must act with honesty. If they want to be brave, they must face fear and still move forward. Talk alone is not enough. This leads to a deep sense of personal responsibility. If there is no God, no destiny, and no universal rulebook, then people must own their choices. They cannot blame a system or force for what they do. If a person lies, it is not because lying was their fate. It is because they chose to lie. If they help someone in need, it is because they saw the moment and acted. In existentialism, each decision helps define who a person is, not just in private, but in public. Sartre said that by choosing for ourselves, we also choose what kind of life we believe is worth living, for anyone. This burden of freedom can feel like pressure. Sartre called it anguish, the feeling of being responsible not just for one act, but for setting an example. Imagine standing at a crossroads, with no signs, no one to guide you, and no way to go back. You must choose a path. That is what freedom means in existentialism. It is not easy. It is full of doubt and risk, but it is also honest. It respects that life is uncertain and that meaning is not given but made. Another common feeling in existentialism is absurdity. Camus used this word to describe the clash between the human need for meaning and the silence of the world. People ask, "Why are we here?" and get no clear answer. They hope life has a point, but the universe gives none. This gap between hope and silence is the absurd. Camus said we must face this without looking away. He did not say we should give up. Instead, he said we must keep living, even without guarantees. He told the story of Sisyphus, a figure from Greek myth who was doomed to roll a rock up a hill, only to watch it roll back down again. Most people see this as pointless suffering, but Camus saw it as a picture of human life. We work, we struggle, we seek meaning, and we fail. But we still choose to keep going. In that choice, there is dignity. If Sisyphus accepts his task and finds meaning in the effort itself, then he wins. Camus wrote, "One must imagine Sisyphus happy." Existentialism also speaks to how people relate to others. Sartre said, "Hell is other people," not to insult others, but to point out how people reflect back on us. In every glance or comment, we see ourselves through someone else's eyes. That can be painful. It can make us feel judged or pinned down. But it also reminds us that we live in a shared world. Our choices affect others. If we treat people as tools or objects, we deny their freedom. If we respect their ability to choose, we affirm their humanity. Simone de Beauvoir took this further. She applied existentialism to how society treats women. She said that women had often been defined by others, told who they were, what they could do, and how they should behave. This robbed them of freedom. She argued that women, like all people, must be free to define themselves through action. She wrote that one is not born a woman, but becomes one. That means identity is not fixed by biology or culture. It is shaped by how a person lives. Existentialism is not a set of strict rules. It is a way of facing life. It says, do not hide behind excuses. Do not wait for someone else to tell you what to do. Accept that life is short and uncertain. Use your time to build something real. That might be a relationship, a piece of work, a political stand, or a quiet act of care. Whatever it is, let it come from your own values, not from fear or habit. Even small choices matter. If a person stays silent when they see injustice, they are choosing to let it stand. If they speak out, even at a cost, they are shaping a world where that action has value. Existentialism asks people to live with that awareness. It does not promise comfort, but it does offer a kind of clarity, the chance to make life one's own through thought, through choice, and through effort. In daily life, this might mean questioning why you do what you do. Are you working a job because it brings you money, or because it aligns with what matters to you? Are you spending time with people who help you grow? Or are you avoiding change? Are you honest in your relationships, or do you hide behind roles? These are not easy questions, but existentialism says they are necessary. No one else can answer them for you. This way of thinking does not ignore pain, failure, or doubt. It includes them. It says that even in loss, even when plans fall apart, people can still choose how to respond. They can act with courage, with care, with clarity. That response may not change the world, but it shapes a life. And in existentialism, that is what matters. Not what happens to you, but what you do with it. Determinism is the idea that every human action has a cause. According to this view, people do not act freely in the way they often believe. Instead, their behavior is shaped by factors beyond their control. These factors can include biology, upbringing, culture, environment, past experiences, or even the laws of physics. If all events, including human choices, have causes, then free will, as people normally think of it, may be an illusion. The theory starts with a basic claim. Everything that happens is the result of something that came before. If you knock over a glass, it falls and breaks. That's cause and effect. Determinists say the same principle applies to people. A person does not choose to feel anger out of nowhere. Something triggers it, an insult, a memory, a physical state. The person reacts in a way that fits their history and mental state at that moment. From the outside, it looks like a choice, but determinism says that choice was shaped by a chain of prior causes. Imagine a person named Lisa. She chooses to become a nurse. It may seem like she made this choice freely, but consider the many factors that led her there. Her mother was a nurse and talked about her work with pride. Lisa did well in science and had access to good schools. She saw friends struggle with illness and wanted to help. Each of these moments shaped her path. Her final decision feels personal. But determinism says it was set in motion long before she reached it. Some of these influences are social. A child raised in a violent neighborhood may learn to respond with aggression. A child raised in a peaceful home may learn patience. These patterns shape how they respond to stress, how they treat others, and how they see themselves. Over time, these habits feel like personality, but determinism sees them as outcomes of environment and history. Biology also plays a role. Genes influence temperament, mood, and mental ability. Some people are born more anxious, more impulsive, or more focused. These traits affect how they learn, how they work, and how they relate to others. A person who is naturally cautious may avoid risk. A person with low impulse control may act quickly without thinking. These traits do not come from choice. They are part of the brain's wiring. Even small events can shape a life. A teacher's comment, a moment of praise, or a random injury can all steer someone in a new direction. The person may believe they are steering their own course, but each step follows from what came before. Determinism says that if we knew all the causes, every past event, every trait, every influence, we could predict what a person would do next. Some thinkers link determinism to science. The physical world follows fixed laws. Objects fall because of gravity. Heat moves from hot to cold. The brain, they argue, is also a physical system. Neurons fire, chemicals flow, and thoughts arise. If the brain is made of matter, and matter follows laws, then thoughts and actions also follow those laws. The feeling of choice is real, but the cause of the action lies in the brain's state at that moment. Others point to psychology. People often act in ways they do not fully understand. They may say one thing and do another. They may repeat harmful patterns without knowing why. Therapy often reveals hidden causes, trauma, habit, fear, that drive behavior. When those causes are uncovered, a person may say, "Now I understand why I act this way." That understanding supports the view that behavior follows from prior conditions. This theory raises hard questions about responsibility. If a person acts because of causes outside their control, can they be blamed? Think of someone who steals food. Was it a free choice, or the result of poverty, stress, and learned behavior? Determinism does not excuse harm. It does not say all actions are good, but it does shift the focus. Instead of asking, why did they choose this? It asks, what caused this behavior, and how can we change those causes? The criminal justice system often assumes people choose their actions, but determinists suggest that punishment alone may not fix the problem. If someone breaks the law due to past trauma or mental illness, helping them address those causes may be more effective. This view supports ideas like rehabilitation and prevention. If we can change the conditions that lead to crime, we may reduce it. Determinism also affects how we think about success and failure. People often praise others for working hard or blame them for being lazy. But what if the drive to work hard comes from upbringing, brain chemistry, or opportunity? What if laziness comes from depression or fear? Determinism suggests that success is not just about willpower, it is also about the conditions that made that willpower possible. Consider two students. One grows up in a home with books, quiet space, and parents who support learning. The other grows up in chaos, with little support and constant stress. If the first student succeeds in school, is that due to choice or to better conditions? If the second student fails, is that laziness or a result of chronic stress and poor sleep? Determinism urges us to ask these questions before we judge. This theory does not deny that people feel like they make choices. It simply says that those choices arise from causes. A person may feel torn between two options, weigh the pros and cons, and pick one. But even that weighing process depends on past experiences, beliefs, and emotions. It feels free, but it follows a path. There are different types of determinism. Hard determinists say that free will does not exist at all. Every action is caused, and choice is an illusion. Soft determinists or compatibilists believe that free will can still exist within a system of causes. They say that freedom means acting in line with one's motives, even if those motives are shaped by past events. Both views agree that causes matter, but they differ on what counts as freedom. Some people reject determinism because it seems to take away hope. If everything is caused, can people change? Determinists say yes. Change is still possible, just not through magic or pure will. Change happens when causes change. A person who gets support, education, or therapy may begin to act in new ways. They are not breaking the chain of cause and effect. They are creating new links in the chain. This way of thinking leads to compassion. If someone acts badly, we can ask what caused it, rather than just punish. If someone succeeds, we can admire their effort and also notice the support they had. Determinism does not remove human dignity. It reminds us that behind every action is a story.
Behind every person is a set of forces, some seen, some hidden, that shaped who they became.
Dualism is the idea that the mind and the body are two separate things. The philosopher René Descartes is most closely linked to this theory. He argued that the mind is not made of physical material, while the body is. This means that thoughts, feelings, and awareness belong to the mind, not to the body. At the same time, the body is a machine made of matter, subject to physical laws like motion and weight. According to Descartes, these two things, the mind and the body, interact, but they are not the same kind of thing. Descartes came to this idea by asking what he could know for sure. He realized that he could doubt everything around him, even his body, but he could not doubt the fact that he was thinking. His famous line, "I think, therefore I am," sums this up. For him, thinking proved the existence of the mind. The body might be a trick, like in a dream, but the mind, the thing doing the thinking, must be real. From this, he concluded that the mind is separate from the body. To understand dualism, think of a computer and a person using it. The machine can process information, display images, and follow instructions, but it has no awareness of what it's doing. The person typing on the keyboard understands meaning, feels frustration, and forms intentions. Dualism says the body is like the machine, and the mind is like the person using it. The mind gives direction, the body carries it out. This idea helps explain some of the puzzles about human nature. For example, a person can imagine something without moving a muscle. They can think about the past or dream of the future. They can feel pain, even when no injury shows up on a scan. These experiences suggest there's more to a person than just their physical form. Dualism says the mind is that extra part, the part that feels, thinks, hopes, and decides. Descartes believed that the mind works through reason. It does not take up space. It has no shape or weight. The body, in contrast, is physical. It can be cut, measured, and observed. Yet, the two must somehow interact. If a person decides to raise their hand, the mind has made a choice, and the body follows. If someone touches a hot stove, the body reacts with pain, and the mind becomes aware. Descartes thought this link happened in a small part of the brain called the pineal gland. Today, scientists doubt this, but the question remains: how can a non-physical thing like the mind cause a physical action? Critics of dualism often raise this point. If the mind has no mass or location, how does it move the body? And if the body runs on biology, where does thought come in? Some argue that if the brain is damaged and thoughts change, then thought must be part of the brain. This view supports materialism, the belief that everything, including the mind, comes from matter. But dualists say that brain damage affects the way the mind expresses itself through the body, not the mind itself. Think of a musician and an instrument. If the guitar is damaged, the music sounds bad. That doesn't mean the musician lost skill. It means the tool is broken. Dualists use a similar example to say the brain is the tool the mind uses. If the tool breaks, the result changes, but the source, the mind, remains. In this view, memory loss or personality change after injury reflects a problem in how the mind connects with the brain, not the destruction of the mind itself. This also opens the door to belief in life after death. If the mind is not made of matter, then it might not die with the body. Many religious and spiritual traditions have used dualism to support the idea that the soul lives on. For Descartes, the mind or soul was the part of a person that thinks and lives beyond the body. This gave weight to the idea that death does not end awareness or identity. Still, many scientists today argue that the mind comes from the brain. They point to brain scans that show how thoughts and emotions link to brain activity. They argue that if all mental states match brain states, then the mind and the brain must be the same thing. But dualists reply, that correlation does not prove identity. Just because two things happen together does not mean they are the same. A phone ringing may match the arrival of a message, but the ring is not the message, it's a signal. In the same way, brain activity may signal mental activity without being the same thing. There are also moral and legal reasons why dualism matters. If a person is only a body, then they might be treated like any other object. But if a person has a mind or soul, then they have value that goes beyond the physical. This affects how people are treated in law, medicine, and ethics. For example, in medical care, the idea of a living will or informed consent assumes that a person has thoughts and intentions, not just a working brain. In criminal law, people are held responsible for their actions because they are believed to have minds that can choose right from wrong. If people were only machines responding to input, there would be no real choice, only reaction. Dualism helps support the idea that people can make moral decisions because they are more than just brains. They are thinking beings with awareness and will. At the same time, dualism has limits. It struggles to explain how mental states and physical states match so closely. Pain, for instance, seems to involve both a mental feeling and a physical cause. When you stub your toe, neurons fire, but you also feel hurt. Is that one event or two? If it's two, how do they stay in sync? If it's one, is the mind really separate? These questions keep the debate alive. Some philosophers have tried to find middle ground. They suggest that the mind and body are two sides of the same thing, like heads and tails on a coin. Others say that the mind emerges from the brain, the way a pattern emerges from tiles on a floor. But true dualists hold that the mind is real on its own. It does not depend on the brain to exist, even if it often works through the brain. People live as if dualism were true. They speak of their bodies as something they have, not something they are. They say things like, "I hurt my hand," or "I changed my mind," as if the self stands apart from the body. They expect others to act with reason and intent, not just reflex. They care about dignity, memory, and personal meaning, things that go beyond blood and bone. Descartes started with doubt and ended with a sharp divide between mind and body. He believed that the mind, being the source of thought, could not be reduced to matter. This view shaped how people understand the self, how they explain action, and how they separate human beings from machines or animals. Whether accepted or rejected, dualism continues to shape how people think about what it means to be a person. Panpsychism is the idea that consciousness is not limited to humans or animals. Instead, it says that all matter has some form of awareness, no matter how simple. This means that even things like rocks, atoms, or air particles might have tiny mental qualities. These qualities are not like human thoughts or feelings. They are much more basic. But they are still real, according to this view. The idea may sound strange, but it has been around for a long time. Some ancient thinkers believed the world itself had a kind of soul. Today, a few philosophers and scientists are revisiting this idea to try and explain consciousness in a new way. Many people think that consciousness only comes from brains. A person sees, hears, thinks, and feels because the brain is active. This view works well when we study human behavior or animal biology, but when we look closer at how the brain creates experience, we run into a problem. Scientists can measure brain activity. They can see patterns when a person looks at a picture or hears a sound. But they still don't know why or how those patterns turn into a sense of awareness. That gap is called the hard problem of consciousness. The hard problem asks how physical matter gives rise to experience. Why does a brain process lead to a feeling of color, sound, or pain? If a computer can process data without being aware, why is the brain different? This is where panpsychism comes in. It offers a new way to think about matter and mind. Instead of saying that awareness appears only in special cases, like in humans, it says that awareness is built into all matter in very simple forms. Imagine a single atom. It does not think, talk, or act. But under panpsychism, it might still have some tiny, basic kind of experience. Not enough to count as thought, and not enough to make choices. Just a faint kind of presence. Now imagine many atoms forming a molecule. The simple experiences of those atoms might combine into a slightly more complex form. As matter becomes more structured, like in plants, animals, and people, the mental side might also become more organized. By the time you get to a brain, you have a system complex enough to support full human awareness. This idea does not mean that your coffee mug has emotions or that your phone can feel bored. That would be a mistake. Panpsychism says that the building blocks of these objects may have basic mental traits, but not full minds. The mug as a whole is not aware, but the parts that make it up might each have their own tiny piece of experience. These pieces do not add up to something like a personality unless they are arranged in a very specific way, like in a brain. Some people compare panpsychism to color. Every object reflects light in some way, but only certain combinations of light and form create what we see as color. In the same way, every object might carry some mental aspect, but only certain forms create full awareness. This helps explain why not everything seems conscious, even if it has the same basic parts as things that are. A common objection to panpsychism is that it sounds too mystical. People ask, how can a rock have a mind? But this question comes from thinking that all minds must be like human minds. Panpsychism rejects that. It says most forms of awareness are too simple to notice. They do not think or feel in ways we can observe, but they still matter. In fact, they may help explain how human minds came to exist at all. Another way to look at it is by comparing it to weight. Every bit of matter has mass, no matter how small. That does not mean every object is heavy in the same way, but it does mean that weight is a basic property of matter. Panpsychism says consciousness is like that. It is not added to matter later. It is there from the start, in tiny amounts. This view avoids some problems faced by other theories. Some people say the brain creates consciousness from matter, like a factory makes a product. But this raises the question of how matter, which seems to lack mental qualities, can produce something so different. Panpsychism removes that jump. It says consciousness does not have to come from nothing, because it was there all along in some small form. Think of baking a cake. If none of the ingredients are sweet, the cake won't be sweet. In the same way, if none of the brain's parts have even a trace of awareness, it's hard to see how full awareness can appear. But if the parts already have small traces of mental life, then the brain's structure might just combine and amplify them. That does not solve every problem, but it changes the question. Now we ask how small parts come together, not how something comes from nothing. Some thinkers try to connect panpsychism with physics. They point out that physical science tells us how matter behaves, but not what it is in itself. We can measure a particle's spin or charge, but we don't know what it feels like to be that particle, if it feels anything at all. Panpsychism suggests that the missing side of physics might be mental. That does not change the laws of motion or energy. It just adds a new layer to what matter might be. Other people use panpsychism to think about nature in a new way. If matter includes mental traits, then the world is not just a machine. It is not lifeless or empty. But that does not mean every tree has a spirit or every stone has wisdom. It means that nature may not be as cold or separate from mind as it seems. This view can shape how people relate to animals, ecosystems, and even the Earth itself. Panpsychism is not easy to prove or disprove. There is no test to detect a tiny bit of awareness in an atom. But the same is true for human consciousness. No one can see another person's thoughts. We rely on behavior, speech, and brain signals. With simpler systems, those signs are missing. Still, that does not mean awareness is not there. It might just be too simple or too different to notice. Some critics say the theory adds more questions than answers. How do tiny mental parts combine into full minds? Where do we draw the line between conscious and unconscious matter? Supporters admit that the theory is not complete, but they say it may still offer the best chance to understand how matter and mind connect. Other theories either deny the mind's reality or treat it as a mystery. Panpsychism tries to bridge that gap without giving up on either side. The idea that all matter includes mental qualities may seem strange at first, but it forces people to think more carefully about what consciousness is, where it comes from, and how it fits into the natural world. Even if it turns out to be wrong, the questions it raises help move the conversation forward. And if it turns out to be right, then the universe is more alive than most people have ever imagined. Simulation theory is the idea that humans and the world they experience may be part of a computer simulation. This theory suggests that what we think of as reality is not the base level of existence. Instead, it could be the output of a program created by a more advanced form of intelligence. That intelligence could be another version of humans from the future, or an entirely different kind of being. According to this idea, everything, people, objects, even the laws of physics, could be code running on a system built by someone else. This theory became well known through science fiction, especially films like The Matrix. But it is not just a story device. Some scientists and philosophers have taken it seriously. One of the most widely discussed versions of it comes from philosopher Nick Bostrom. He argued that at least one of three things must be true. Either advanced civilizations never reach the point where they can run realistic simulations of human life, or they reach that point but choose not to run such simulations, or we are almost certainly living in one already. To see why someone might believe this, start with the idea of future computing power. Today's computers are already fast. They can simulate weather systems, build 3D worlds, and predict complex outcomes. If technology keeps advancing, it's reasonable to think that future computers could simulate entire worlds. If these simulations include people with detailed thoughts, memories, and emotions, then the simulated beings would not know they are inside a program. To them, their world would feel just as real as ours feels to us. Imagine a video game where every character acts with its own mind and responds in new ways each time the game is played. Now imagine that technology growing over thousands of years. Eventually, you could have simulations of whole societies. These societies would include people who believe they are living in the real world. They would eat, sleep, love, fear, and question reality, just like we do. If a civilization like that could make many such simulations, then simulated minds might far outnumber real ones. In that case, the odds that we are one of the real ones would be low. Supporters of simulation theory often point to patterns in the universe that look like code. For example, the rules of physics are fixed, like a program. The speed of light has a limit. Energy is conserved. These rules could be written into a system to keep it running smoothly. Some even suggest that quantum physics, with its strange behavior and limits of observation, may hint at the edges of a simulation. When a particle is not observed, its state is unclear. When it is observed, it takes on a specific form. That seems similar to a game engine loading only the parts of the world the player is looking at. Others point to math. The universe follows mathematical laws so precisely that some people think the math might be more than a tool. It might be the actual framework of reality. In that case, the universe could be a kind of computational system. If it runs like a system, maybe it is a system. That line of thought supports the simulation idea. But the theory has problems. One of them is the lack of testable evidence. So far, no one has found proof that we are in a simulation. There are no clear glitches in the matrix. Some scientists have proposed looking for signs, such as limits to how small something can be, or strange repeating patterns in cosmic data. But nothing found so far proves or disproves the theory. Another issue is motivation. Why would a future being run a simulation of human life? Some say it could be for research, like we use computer models to study climate or disease. Others say it could be for entertainment. Just like people today play games set in past centuries, future beings might run simulations of their own ancestors. Or it could be for reasons we can't imagine, because their values and goals would be unlike ours. There's also the ethical question. If the people in the simulation are not aware that they are simulated, and if they suffer or die, does it matter? Are their feelings real? Are their lives worth the same as lives outside the simulation? If consciousness is tied to patterns of information, and if those patterns can exist in a computer, then a simulated person might be just as real, in terms of experience, as a biological one. This leads to questions about identity. If someone learns they are part of a simulation, does that change who they are? Their memories, goals, and relationships would still feel real. The pain would still hurt. The love would still matter. In this way, simulation theory shares something with older philosophical ideas, like Descartes' doubt or Plato's cave. In both, the focus is on what counts as real and how much we can trust our senses. Skeptics argue that the theory does not explain anything new. Saying we are in a simulation changes the setting, but not the facts of our daily lives. Gravity still works, fire still burns, love still heals and breaks. Whether the world runs on code or atoms, the experiences remain the same. That makes simulation theory more of a thought experiment than a scientific model. Still, it raises important questions. What does it mean to be real? Is consciousness tied to biology, or can it exist in other forms? If it can, then how we treat artificial beings may one day become a moral issue. Some thinkers suggest we already see early forms of simulated life in AI and machine learning. These systems do not feel or think like humans yet, but if they ever do, we may need to rethink what counts as a person. Some people worry that the theory promotes fatalism. If we are just code, do our choices matter? Do we have free will? But others argue that even if we are in a simulation, we still act, feel, and decide. The system may be set up, but our responses are still ours. In that view, the meaning of life does not vanish. It just shifts from what we are made of to how we live. Simulation theory does not say the world is fake in the way a movie set is fake. It says the world could be built on a different foundation than we think. Instead of atoms and molecules at the base, it could be data and code. That idea is hard to prove and harder to rule out. But it continues to draw interest because it sits at the edge of what people know and what they wonder. Whether true or not, it makes people think more carefully about reality, thought, and what it means to exist. The Anthropic Principle is the idea that the universe seems set up in a way that allows human life to exist. It looks as if the physical laws and constants, like the strength of gravity or the charge of the electron, are just right for life to develop. If these values were slightly different, even by a tiny amount, stars might not form, atoms might not hold together, or planets might never exist. Because of this, some people think the universe must be fine-tuned. Others suggest we only see it this way because we are here to see it at all. The basic idea starts with a simple fact: we exist. That means the universe must have the right conditions for people like us to appear. Water must be able to flow. Carbon must form. Planets must orbit in stable paths around stars. But there's more. When scientists look at the numbers that shape the universe, they find that if these numbers had been slightly different, life would not be possible. That seems strange. Why would the universe have just the right setup for life? Take gravity, for example. If gravity were a bit stronger, stars would burn too fast and too hot. They might not last long enough to support life. If gravity were weaker, stars might not ignite at all. Either way, you wouldn't get a stable, warm star like our sun. Or consider the ratio of the masses of protons and neutrons. If that ratio were off by a small fraction, atoms might not hold together. Without atoms, there is no matter, no chemistry, and no biology. There are many such constants in physics. Each one seems to fall within a narrow range that allows life. This has led some thinkers to ask, is this a coincidence, or is something deeper going on? This is where the Anthropic Principle comes in. It offers a way to think about this strange fit between the universe and life. There are two main forms of the principle. The weak Anthropic Principle says we should not be surprised that the universe allows life, because we are here to observe it. In other words, we could only ask the question in a universe where the conditions are right for us to exist. If the universe had been different, no one would be around to wonder about it. This version is not meant to explain why the universe has the values it does. It just points out that we should expect to see a universe that supports life, because that's the only kind we could see. The strong Anthropic Principle takes a bolder step. It suggests that the universe must have properties that allow life to develop. Some people see this as a sign of purpose or design. They say the universe is not just a random set of conditions. It is structured in a way that leads to life, perhaps even to intelligent life. This has led to many debates. Some see it as a way to bring science and philosophy together. Others worry that it goes too far beyond what science can test. Another idea linked to the Anthropic Principle is the multiverse. This is the theory that our universe is just one of many. In other universes, the constants might be different. Some might expand too fast. Some might collapse too soon. Some might have no matter at all. Most of these universes would not support life. But if there are enough of them, then by chance, at least one will have the right values. That would be our universe. We live in it because it is one of the rare ones where life is possible. This idea changes the way we think about fine-tuning. Instead of seeing the universe as made for us, we might see ourselves as the lucky result of a large sample. If you roll enough dice, you will eventually get a rare outcome. If there are countless universes, it's not strange that one of them fits life. And if beings in that universe start asking why things are the way they are, the answer could be simple. You live in one of the few places where those things can happen. To make this idea more clear, imagine a person waking up inside a sealed room. The air is just right for breathing. The temperature is safe. There's food and water. The person might think, this room must have been made for me. But if there are millions of such rooms, each with random conditions, and most of them are deadly, then it's not surprising that one person wakes up in the one room where life is possible. That's the only kind of room where someone could wake up and ask questions at all. Still, the multiverse idea has its own problems. Right now, scientists cannot test for the existence of other universes. That makes it hard to prove or disprove. Some people say this makes it more of a philosophical idea than a scientific one. Others argue that we should take the possibility seriously, even if it's hard to test, because it offers a natural way to explain fine-tuning without needing purpose or design. Some religious thinkers see the Anthropic Principle as support for the idea of a creator.
They say the fine-tuning of the universe shows that it was made with life in mind. For them, the universe is not just a place that allows life by chance. It was built to support life on purpose. That view adds a layer of meaning to the scientific facts. But others respond that science should stick to natural explanations and avoid claims that can't be tested. Whether someone sees purpose or chance, the Anthropic Principle points to a real and strange feature of the universe. The values of the fundamental forces, the speed of light, the strength of electromagnetism, and the mass of the particles, all fall into ranges that allow stars, planets, chemistry, and biology to exist. This fit seems too close to ignore. At the same time, the principle reminds us that we have a limited view. We are here, in this universe, on this planet, at this time. We do not know what lies beyond. We do not know if other forms of life could exist under different rules. We do not know if the constants could have been otherwise, or if they had to be what they are. All we know for sure is that we live in a world where life is possible, and we have the tools to notice how rare that might be. This makes the Anthropic Principle both a guide and a puzzle. It guides us by pointing to the conditions that make life possible. It puzzles us by raising questions we cannot yet answer. Why do the numbers line up so well? Are we just lucky? Are we part of something larger? These questions are not easy, but they're worth asking. They show that science is not only about measuring and predicting. It is also about wonder, and about trying to understand why things are the way they are.
The ancient astronaut theory suggests that intelligent beings from other planets visited Earth long ago and influenced early human life. According to this idea, ancient people may have seen these beings as gods. The theory claims that some major steps in human development, such as building large structures, creating complex religions, or advancing in knowledge, were helped or guided by visitors from space. Supporters point to ancient texts, artwork, and monuments that they believe show signs of contact with advanced beings. One example often used is the Egyptian pyramids. These massive stone structures are aligned with stars and built with great precision. Supporters of the theory ask how ancient people could have moved such large blocks without modern tools. They argue that early humans may not have had the knowledge or strength to build the pyramids on their own. Some say the help must have come from a more advanced group, possibly visitors from another planet. Another example is the Nazca lines in Peru. These are huge shapes and patterns etched into the ground, visible only from the air. The lines form animals, people, and geometric shapes. Since the figures are so large and best seen from above, some supporters of the theory suggest that they were made as signals or messages for beings flying in the sky. They argue that the scale and design point to an understanding of flight or aerial perspective that ancient humans should not have had. Texts from early civilizations also play a role in this theory. Some ancient writings describe beings coming from the sky or stars. For example, in ancient Mesopotamian stories, gods descend to earth in flying chariots. In Indian texts, like the Vedas, flying machines called vimanas are described. Supporters argue that these stories may be based on real encounters with advanced flying craft and their pilots. They believe early humans may have misunderstood what they saw and described it using the language and symbols they knew. In the Bible, the book of Ezekiel tells of a vision involving wheels within wheels, full of fire and light, coming from the sky. Some people believe this could be a description of a spacecraft, not a spiritual vision. They argue that Ezekiel might have seen something mechanical, but described it as best he could with the words he had. The same idea is applied to other religious stories, where angels or gods appear in ways that sound to modern ears like aircraft or spacesuits. Supporters also look at ancient art. In some pieces, figures appear with large heads, big eyes, or strange objects in their hands. On cave walls and temple carvings, there are shapes that some say resemble rockets, antennas, or helmets. These images may look unusual, but critics argue they are often symbols or artistic styles common to the culture and time.
Still, the theory uses these images to support the idea of contact with something otherworldly. The ancient astronaut theory is not part of mainstream science. Most historians and archaeologists believe that humans built monuments, wrote stories, and made art using their own tools and imagination. They point out that people were capable of solving hard problems, organizing large workforces, and passing down skills. The pyramids, for example, were built using ramps, levers, and teams of workers. The Nazca lines may have been planned with simple tools and measured from the ground. The art and texts may reflect beliefs, dreams, or metaphors rather than facts. Still, supporters of the theory argue that too many examples line up. They say that similar stories appear across cultures that had no contact with each other. For example, gods coming from the sky are found in many parts of the world. They believe this is not a coincidence. They argue that these stories point to a shared event in the distant past, one that was remembered in different ways by different groups of people. Others take the theory further. They suggest that ancient visitors may have changed human DNA, taught farming, or helped create early governments. They claim that genetic leaps in early history may be linked to outside help. This includes the sudden growth of the human brain or the rise of organized society. Critics respond that these changes can be explained by evolution, environment, and trial and error learning. But supporters argue that these changes happened too fast to be fully natural. Some also connect the theory to the idea of lost civilizations. Places like Atlantis, which some say vanished without a trace, are said to be examples of human cultures guided by advanced beings. These cultures may have had knowledge of energy, astronomy, or math far beyond what we expect for the time. When these cultures fell, their knowledge was lost, leaving only clues in myth and legend. Despite the debate, the ancient astronaut theory has gained a wide audience. Books, TV shows, and documentaries have spread the idea. Some people are drawn to it because it offers a different view of history. It suggests that humans are not alone, and that the universe has always been full of other life. For some, the theory gives a sense of connection to something larger. For others, it's simply an exciting story. Skeptics warn that the theory can lead to wrong conclusions. They say it may ignore the skill and creativity of ancient people. It may also spread ideas without enough evidence. In some cases, it may even reflect bias, assuming that early cultures couldn't build or invent things without outside help. This view, critics say, can take away from the real achievements of early humans. Still, the theory raises interesting questions. If other life forms exist in the universe, could they have visited Earth in the past? If they did, how would early humans describe what they saw? Could myth and legend hold hidden truths? While these questions remain open, the ancient astronaut theory continues to invite people to look again at old stories, ancient monuments, and unexplained mysteries with new eyes. Whether or not the theory is true, it reminds us that human history is full of wonder, and that curiosity about our past continues to shape the way we understand the present. Collective consciousness is the idea that human societies share a set of beliefs, values, and understandings that go beyond individual thoughts. This idea was first shaped by the sociologist Emil Durkheim, who used it to explain how societies hold together. He said that even though each person has a private mind, there is also a shared mental space formed by the group. This shared space helps people agree on what is right and wrong, what matters, and how to behave. Durkheim studied religion, law, and tradition to show how shared beliefs shape behavior. In a small village, for example, people might agree that helping a neighbor is not just kind, but required. This belief does not come from each person thinking it up alone. It comes from growing up in a group that repeats the same values. The belief becomes part of the group's identity. When someone breaks the rule, others feel not just surprise, but shock or anger. That emotional response shows that the rule lives in the shared mind of the group, not just in individual opinions. He also saw that the collective mind can grow stronger in certain moments. A public ceremony, a funeral, a protest, or a national holiday can bring people together in a way that feels larger than life. At those times, the group's sense of self becomes intense. People feel connected to something beyond their own lives. They may chant, sing, cry, or cheer in unison. Durkheim called this collective effervescence. It's a moment when people feel lifted by the group's shared energy. It's not just being together, it's feeling united in purpose and meaning. Later, the psychologist Carl Jung took this idea in a different direction. He believed there was a deeper layer to the shared mind. He called it the collective unconscious. Unlike Durkheim's view, which focused on shared knowledge and values in society, Jung said that people across time and place carry shared symbols, images, and stories deep in their minds. These are not learned from culture alone. They are inherited parts of being human. Jung studied myths, dreams, and art from many cultures. He found patterns that kept showing up: heroes on journeys, wise old figures, shadowy doubles, and great floods. He called these patterns archetypes. Archetypes are not exact stories. They are forms that shape stories, ways of thinking that show up again and again. For Jung, these patterns come from the collective unconscious. They guide how people dream, fear, hope, and imagine. They live inside the mind, but not just one mind. They belong to all people. To understand how this might work, imagine a child hearing a fairy tale for the first time. The story feels familiar, even if it's new. It touches something deep, something that did not need to be taught. The idea of a lost child finding their way home, or a struggle between light and dark, rings true in many cultures. Jung said that is because those images grow from the collective roots of the human mind. In modern times, these two ideas, Durkheim's collective consciousness and Jung's collective unconscious, are sometimes blended. Together, they suggest that human life is shaped not only by our thoughts, but also by the shared thoughts of others, both around us and from long ago. These thoughts do not float in the air. They live in books, customs, language, art, rituals, and institutions. They also live in quiet forms, like the way people tend to react to certain symbols or roles without thinking. For example, consider how most people feel about a wedding dress, a flag, or a funeral song. These objects carry weight far beyond their physical form. They trigger emotions, guide behavior, and link people to others who share the same meaning. That's not just personal memory. That's the group mind at work. When people move to a new country or join a new religion, they often feel the presence of a different collective mind. The rules change, the meanings shift. They must learn how to move within the new shared world. Technology adds another layer. With the internet, ideas can move fast. A joke, a phrase, or a symbol can sweep across the world in hours. These viral patterns show how quickly a group mind can form around a single thought. A meme, a protest slogan, or a public event can create sudden waves of emotion and action. Even when people are far apart, they can take part in the same shared moment. That doesn't mean the internet creates true understanding, but it does show that shared thought still holds great power. There's also a darker side. The group mind can support kindness, but it can also support cruelty. If a group agrees that one kind of person is less worthy, that belief can spread and harden into action. History has many examples of this. Wars, slavery, and genocide often begin not with private hate, but with shared beliefs that grow strong and go unchallenged. That's why understanding collective consciousness matters. It shows how people's ideas are shaped and how those ideas can shape the world in return. In daily life, people may not think about collective consciousness, but they feel its effects. A child learns to say thank you, not by reasoning it out, but by hearing it again and again. A driver stops at a red light because the rule feels normal and right. A student stands for the national anthem because others do. These are not just habits. They are signs that people live inside a shared structure of meaning. That shared structure is not fixed. It can change over time. Beliefs that once seemed obvious about race, gender, class, or family can shift. When they do, it's often because enough people start to think and speak differently. A movement begins. Ideas spread. Slowly, the collective mind changes. That change can be hard. People may feel like their world is slipping, but it also opens space for new values and new ways to live together. Some people resist the idea of a collective mind. They want to believe that each person is fully free and self-made. But even the words they use, the ideas they hold, and the stories they tell come from somewhere. They are shaped by the group. That does not mean people are robots or puppets. It means that freedom happens within a shared space. People can think for themselves, but they must also think with others. The idea of collective consciousness is not about magic or group telepathy. It's about the real ways that thoughts, feelings, and values spread through a group. It's about how societies form a kind of mind that speaks through its customs, its laws, and its shared memories. It's about how people become human, not just by thinking, but by living in a world of other thinkers. Durkheim saw this in rituals and rules. Jung saw it in dreams and myths. Together, their work shows that the human mind is never alone. It is always part of something larger.